are live for day 2 of the Bravery One British Open, the UK's largest ever Age of Sigmar match play event. There is 200 half-cut men in a room trying to play Warhammer very ferociously. However, not all of them can win it at this stage, Nath.
No, some of them have been losing a few games here and there, but some of them, like that Darkling Coven player I see over there, have won all of their games.
Yeah,
there's a Seraphon guy.
You ruining the whole table we were going to do about that.
Were we?
Yeah.
Oh, well.
That's fine. That's fine.
Table?
Yeah, we got a table. Don't worry. Yeah, you're right. There's some surprising.
There's some surprises, aren't there?
Yeah, some surprising matchups in the top 10, which is really exciting. And we'll be looking at those in a minute. But first off, Nate, how you feeling? You excited about today?
Yeah. It's going to be cool to see these last couple of games. See who's going to be the winner.
It is going to be
of the tournament.
The winner of the whole tournament. Obviously, with an event this size, it could come down to a couple of people as we go to. But today, Notorious Big Sean, thanks for subscribing. Thank you to everyone and Patreon and Twitch for supporting the show. You guys are wonderful. So obviously, yesterday we do the fun. We have the frolics and the adventures. Yeah. We saw some fun matchups, right?
Yeah, particularly the first two. I think the last one was pretty serious.
It was a serious affair. Yeah, but it was fun. So yeah, we saw.
Yeah, I mean, you only play Warhammer for fun, really. So yeah.
Agreed. We put Darkling Covens on yesterday because we just expected
them not to win any games,
and now they're on 3. And then Dispossessed are not though. No. I've got nothing bad to say about that though.
No, there's nothing bad to be
nothing
said.
Bad to say.
They're obviously just chilling. I think they went out hard last night as well, so I think they're feeling quite rough this morning.
No, they are. So thank you everyone for joining us. Let us know who you think's going to win. Our first matchup today that we'll be covering, there's going to be an off table as well, but our first matchup that we're going to be covering is going to be Skaven versus Disciples of Tzeentch with a change host, so it's very, very interesting.
Yeah.
It was a bit, always picking which game is going to go on the stream is always a bit of a challenge. And almost always, like as you'll see. In fact, John, let's go look at the top 10 tables so you guys can get some sort of indication of what we're looking at as matchups and what we had to pick from. Because it's going to be, honestly, it's Skaven heavy is just an understatement.
I think a lot of people came prepared for dealing with the Flesh Eater Court Dragon. But then other armies are less easy to prepare for, and Skaven is one of those. They're just quite a flexible army, really. So.
Yeah, they're very. Yes, Skaven is so flexible. They've got so much utility and so many tools. I wouldn't know how to do. I talked about this. We saw Dan Ford actually go out yesterday. So we saw Mr. Jack Armstrong's playing against him, and he's now playing against Tony Moore. So you got Flesh Eater Courts versus Tony Moore with his Tony Moore with his Flesh Eater Courts versus Jack's Disciples of Tzeentch. Not Disciples of Tzeentch.
He's got Daughters of Cain.
Daughters of Cain. Yeah, and he's coming off the back of a South Coast GT victory. Yeah. So he's feeling good.
Yeah, he's feeling ready to stab some folk, take some names. He's got the army for it, that's for sure.
He
the
has.
Daughters of Cain
the
as we saw last night, they're still a force to be reckoned with. Absolutely.
Although I do think that we could have seen the Heat Knights of Slaanesh actually take that out.
Oh yeah.
There's a Heat Knights of Slaanesh army actually currently on the top tables as well, playing against Sylvaneth. So we are going to bring you that chart at some point, I imagine. There we go. Instead of having to. So this is what we're looking at with the top tables. So you got Beasts of Chaos versus Daughters of Cain.
Yeah.
Have you? Daughters of Cain versus Beasts? Is that right? John, are you sure? Anyway, so then you got Flesh Eater Courts.
Yeah, that should be Daughters of Cain versus the Khorne.
Yes.
Khorne.
Yeah. So that one's wrong.
Yeah,
so it's Blades of Khorne versus Daughters of Cain.
Yeah,
but
that's the
definite.
Blades of Khorne list with Archaon in.
Yeah. So Laurie Huggett Wiggett. Do you know what? We'll just.
No, I think that's Mark Wildman's list.
Oh, it is Mark Wildman's. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. We'll come back to that. He's tried hard there. Yeah.
To kind of sort those names out. That's cool. No, but yeah. I think we've got a few sore heads here as well this morning.
Not Scrivo's though. What's really nice, if you guys keep track, is Scrivo quite famously sometimes doesn't make it to the Sunday morning because he loves a good old drink. Though thankfully, he's actually made this one.
Yeah. He's been very restrained, kept it down to the last couple of barrels. So, yeah, well done, Scrivo.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a nice finger you've got. Cool.
Good. So while he updates that info, we're going to let's jump over to the lists. So we can go to the lists.
Yeah.
That should be easy to do. So thank you very much, John. Appreciate that. So look at the two lists that we're going to. So the game that we're going to be looking at is going to be Daniil, and he is up against Michael. That's who they're playing. So you got Daniil's got the Disciples of Tzeentch, and it's a really, really interesting army. You got the Gaunt Summoner with Chaos Familiars, who's the general with Arcane Sacrifice, the Aura of Mutability, and he's got Arcane Suggestion. You've got Lord of Change, who's got the Mark of the Conjurer, and then the Lord of Change is Tzeentch's Firestorm. You've got Blue Scribes with the Bolt of Tzeentch. And then you've got 10 pink horrors, 10 pink horrors, and 10 pink horrors. Now, like, on paper, that looks very expensive. 10 pink horrors for 200 points.
Yeah.
But when you work out that they're going to explode, they're their own summoning pool in reality.
That's right. So each pink horror then gives you blue points, which you can use as they die, and then you can use those to summon blue horrors, and then again
when
give
they
you
die,
brim points, which you can use to summon brimstone horrors. Obviously, it's changed slightly, so you now need the hero, so you can summon from the heroes. But yeah, so you effectively, when you're buying the 10 pink horrors, you're also buying the blues and the brims that come out of that.
Yeah, and it's two blues for every pink, and it's two brims for every blue. So effectively, you're going 10, 20, 40. You can put, and then you've seen extra units. You've got 3 units of 10 brimstone horrors. 2 units of 10 brimstone horrors and 2 units of blue horrors. He's got the change host formation. So the bad guy from AOS 1.
Oh yeah. So yeah, we did see some bad feels from the old change host. Doesn't seem to be that much of a topic at the moment, though. I think we've got some new baddies at the top of the list. But Tzeentch are still great. I've played against Tzeentch. They're and with my list that likes magic to work, Tzeentch have still got so much control of the magic phase. And you can see he's brought a load of endless spells. He's got the Pendulum,
Balewind Vortex, Chronomantic Cogs, and the Burnhead. I think the Vortex is actually a really good shout, because very rare actually you see them put on the tabletop nowadays. But the ability to give you casted cover, increase how many spells they got. Now the key part there is that the artifact is going to allow the army to double how many fate points it gets from its casts.
So it's a big summoning army, this I think you'll find. It's going to be interesting to see how that side works. We saw yesterday the Hedonites army could have summoned, I think, more, and the summoning was such a strong mechanic for them. It's going to be good to see how the Tzeentch summoner uses his summoning to control the game. So he's also playing against the Skaven, so that Gaunt Summoner is going to have some juicy targets for his horde clearing spell, isn't he?
Well, so let's talk about the Skaven list, right? So he's got, like Michael's got a very cool list. I'm very happy that we got to put this on the stream. We've got Verminlord Warpseer, and he's got the general trait, the Master of Magic, which the Tzeentch army is going to test, I think. Yeah, they're going to see whether or not that is the case. You've got the Grey Seer with Skitterly, you've got Death Master with the Norbomb, you've got the Warlock Bombardier, and he's obviously got the Law of Warp Vault, more Warp Power. He's got 40 Clan Rats, 20 Clan Rats, then he's got 9 Storm Fiends. So that's a 780 point unit. Is that the most expensive unit you can put on the table in Age of Sigmar? I think it might be.
It's got to be up there.
It's
absolutely
up there. I don't think there's a unit that is more expensive. Oh, maybe you could do Dracolines. You can have a more expensive unit of Dracolines.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah.
And then
but the weapons they're armed with, so you got 3 wind launchers, 3 rattling cannons, and 3 shock gauntlets. So a lot of shooting. But then also you've got 3 with the shock gauntlets for running in and smashing. So it's quite a multi-purpose unit, really.
Yeah, it's got a lot of utility, but it's a lot of wounds in one place.
Yeah.
So the clan rats obviously are going to give some board control, and obviously there's loads of output from those storm fiends as well as there's the vortex and soulstone shackles in the list as well.
Got the rat trap.
Rat trap, the vortex. It's got it's good when it's got that many names. Yeah. So I think we can go to the table here and start to look at how this battle's going to shape up realistically. Thank you very much, John. So we get to see. So on the right-hand side, you're seeing the Disciples of Tzeentch deploying, and on the left-hand side, you're seeing the Skaven deploying there. We'll get our man on the ground to let you know what units are what in a minute. But let's talk about the scenario at first. We're playing shifting objectives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So shifting objectives is on the Battle for the Past style board. So you're playing long ways across the board instead of widthwise, which I find sort of condenses the combat into the middle, especially as the objectives are fairly close together in this.
Yeah, I would say that this is very much an output attrition game. So one of the really interesting things about the 2 blocks of 40 and 20 clan rats that you see from Skaven is they really are used to, like, in a wider map, they'd be used to hold up, stop summoning, which we're going to see, I think, be even more prevalent in the future. But board control is a thing that we talk about a lot.
Yeah.
And so just having that volume of bodies, there's 100 rats, 100 rats on that board as bodies to create space. It's really, really useful. Nathan, I know that Handa Gork in a unit of 60 grots is a thing that you can do to create board control.
Yeah.
So then the Tzeentch force is kind of similar, realistically. However, the Skaven definitely have output in those Storm Fiends, and as well as all the end of spells. I don't know if Tzeentch have the output for that war. And I think this is an output scenario. This is a scenario about fighting.
Yeah. I think so. Obviously, the Gaunt Summoner's got a lot of work to do with his special spell, which works so good against hordes. But he has deployed kind of deep there, so I think he's going to be looking for position. It's quite interesting to see where the Gnaw holes are. I can see 2 of them. So
there's one at the far back.
Yeah.
So Gnaw hole positioning. Let's just make it have a nice arrow. So you've got a Gnaw hole here, you have a Gnaw hole here. Now, Gnaw hole placement is also always a big deal. I would say that, and Nathan, I'm sure you're going to back me up on this, I would say you often see someone put 2 Gnaw holes in their opponent's deployment and then 1 at the back. And what I like is this. I think that's the smart play when it comes to Gnaw hole placement. I
definitely agree. I think using the flanks for your Gnaw holes, especially early on in the game, is great for just flicking units across the board. If you put them deep in your opponent's territory, your opponent can zone them out, just leaving an arbitrary unit just sat on the Gnaw hole, meaning that you can't use the Gnaw hole for the teleporting. Although, I mean, that does result in your opponent basically just giving up a unit just to sit on a Gnaw hole. But if you want to use the Gnaw holes yourself, I do think putting them in no man's land, sort of in that area where they can't be zoned out until later on in the game, means that at least you can use them early on in the game just to redeploy. You got the option. You don't have to take it, obviously. Absolutely. That unit of Storm Fiends that's sat around that Gnaw hole in the bottom left corner as we're looking at it can now suddenly flick across the board and be in the top right if they need to, which is, in this scenario, it's not a bad shout.
I agree. So when it comes to lists and drops, Michael has got like 11 drops and Daniil's a 2-drop army. Yeah, so that 2-drop army means that Daniil knew right from the deployment that he was going to be either giving or taking the first turn. Knowing that he was giving the first turn, because he has given the first turn. So as you can see, Michael's now active. So we're into the match. Put your hats on, do your ties up, get your coffees in, because the match is on and we're ready to rock. And Michael is on it, and he's doing the work.
Looks like he's cast the Geminids there. Oh no, this is the vortex, isn't it? The
This
rat
is the
trap
vortex.
is dropping.
So
yes.
I know a little bit of gossip, Nath.
Yeah.
I know a little bit of gossip. Now I know that Daniil was actually talking about this list last night because the players got to see their matchups yesterday, so they knew who they were playing.
Yeah.
He said he wasn't even going to try and unbind the vortex. Now that sounds like madness, realistically. Yeah. So he's deployed, knowing that Michael is going to 100% smash the vortex out early doors.
Yeah.
And what he's looking to do is take the damage to create summoning points.
Right. Okay.
So this is all intentional, as far as I understand it. Daniil, and don't forget, Daniil, as stated, not only knew who was getting the first turn because he had the lower drops. He's intentionally giving this away. So what you're seeing happen right now, as far as I'm aware, is what Daniil wants to happen.
It's so Tzeentchian.
It's so Tzeentchian. Yeah.
Cast that spell. Come on. Cast that spell. Give me a fate point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Now, give me some blue points. Thank you very much. You're walking into this trap.
Yeah, I do. Well,
Wow.
so as far as I'm aware, we don't know Daniil I don't know Daniil as a player, but I would argue that having already won 3 with the Chain Host is a solid shout. Now it's going to be a very complex, and if you've ever played against Skaven, can be a very complex hero phase. So lots can happen, and we're going to find out in an update what that's going to be when we come back. But first we're going to find out from our man in the field, Mr. Adam Hughes, and we're going to find out what's happening on the top tables and generally at the rest of BOBO. So over to him. I hope. So hello, welcome back. It's as all. Yeah, he hasn't turned his mic on, which is okay. That's not an issue at all. So we're into the hero phase.
Right.
And Nathan, you played against Skaven. What do you think of the hero phase? Complicated?
Yeah. So Skaven have got so he's got the vortex spell. Skaven have also got a great magic phase. Normally they've got the Gracia. He's sweet at casting spells, double spellcaster. Very annoying how cheap he is for the stuff that he can do with his magic. Okay, but we've finished the magic phase.
We're on to movement phase already?
Yeah, he's tunneled up his Storm Fiends into the center. And using his special 9-inch measurer just to make sure he's not too close to the offending horrors.
It's an interesting measuring device there. What I find key, only a 9-incher. That's correct. What I've enjoyed most about and everyone at BOBO has been given one of those lovely 9-inch measurers. Yesterday we saw someone use a carrot to measure, which is very funny. What I like about it is the gentleness that people are using to placing it on the field. There's a certain serenity, you could say, bringing what I think is a much needed kind of austerity to wargaming. I sometimes find that we take it too light-hearted. Yes. We're not quite serious enough about wargaming in general.
So there's a bit of reverence as he uses his measurements, making sure he's in the correct position. to maximise the pointage that he's going to get out of those objectives in the middle. But he has wanged his unit right into the middle there. So he's
now
obviously not that scared of a Tzeentchian counter. It's going to be interesting to see how the Tzeentch are going to summon damage onto that unit. That's the scary unit on the board, really, isn't it?
That's
combat-wise and shooting-wise.
Yeah, realistically, almost all of the output that you're seeing is out of those Storm Fiends, and everything that's there, including the Bombardier, the Bombardier is there. So it's a 780 point unit, and the Bombardier is just points in addition to make them better.
Yeah, so
it's almost half an army.
So the Bombardier would have cast more walk power. Just to confirm, that has been cast? Yes, it has. So that's been cast on the Storm Fiends. So that's going to further increase the damage from their guns. So they're going to lay down some fire. It's going to
be pretty horrific. However, I don't think Daniil minds. I won't lie to you. I don't think Michael's got many options. Truth be told, he could have held off for a turn, yeah, and then seen what happened on the priority roll, and then given it away. He could have set up defensively, intentionally on the first turn, and then what he could have expected Michael to wait for Daniil to do is move out and reveal his plans. And like you got to do with Tzeentch, you have to wait for their plans to be revealed.
Yeah.
So we're going to go back now because Tzeentch has finally turned our microphone on for our infield reporter, and we'll let you know what the shooting does from that unit in a minute.
Cool.
Okay, I'm actually here now. These guys were playing tricks on me and turning my stuff off. So rather than just stand here like a mute, I'm actually going to give you some info. So I'm going to be bringing you the info from the top 10, 12 tables, plus the greatest hits of the faction battles. So we've got Dispossessed, which I've been bringing you all weekend so far, and we've got Wanderers. Wanderers so far, nobody's won a game. So all it takes is a little is a little slip up from one of their opponents, and suddenly there's potential. But the two matchups they've got are like really tough for them. You've got on the wrong page. So for Keith with his Wanderers, he's up against Gary with Maggotkin of Nurgle. So he's massively outnumbered there, but he should be okay. The thing is with Keith is there's a battalion in the Wanderers that allows him to teleport around the board. It's an expensive one. It's like 200 points, but Will on table 92, he has got that, and he's been able to get the mobility and kind of mess his opponent up a little bit more, create a bit more of an area of denial. That said, they've both done exactly the same, you know, in table 92 and 94 respectively. So neither one are particularly setting the world alight. But Will is up against the Skaven army. This is Simon with his Skaven Tide army, and that it looks like a great list. But again, obviously, didn't win any games yesterday. Both the opponents, none of them have won any games. So on table 92 and 94. Moving up to the Dispossessed, we've got Tuggy on table 52 and LLV, who he only got in at 4:30 this morning. So the robot is certainly slightly malfunctioning this morning. He's up against Josh with Legions and Nagash, and Tuggy is up against Paul with the Seraphon list. Now already Tuggy deployed quite far up in his deployment zone, and there's some Ripperdactyls that have appeared behind him and fired straight into his Thunderers. So Tuggy's already stood there thinking, oh great, okay, they're going to get wiped out, and so he's feeling very much on the back foot. He feels like he may have lost that one. LLV's matchup is a really tough one. The Legions of Nagash army he's up against, he feels like he's pretty much got no chance, but it could make for a really interesting fifth game for the Dispossessed players, because there's a chance then, because they both have gone 1 out of 4, there's a chance they may end up going against each other, and there's a potential chance that the two Wanderers players will go against each other, because both of them are a little bit quizzical, questionable about whether they can win their matches. So that'll be really, really interesting to see. Moving up to table 12, we've got Steve Dooley versus Jamie Tinsdale. Steve, as you know, he's got his Darkland Coven. He's gone 3-0 so far, and Jamie has also got 3-0 with his Idna Deepkin. No, he's gone 2 and a draw actually so far. So currently Steve is, technically on paper, is doing better than Jamie so far, but it's an interesting one. Steve's going for Jamie's Tidecasters straight away. That's his secondary, is to kill General versus General. He's fired his General Dragon up the board already, and he's already in a perfect position to just breath her straight off the board. So there's a potential that he's going to get his secondary straight away, and he's not necessarily aiming for a huge amount more. Sorry, we've got people falling over my shoulder here. I don't know if you can see those, but yeah, that's just a sign of last night. Really, there was a lot of fun going on last night. Table 11, then we've got Leo with his Sylvaneth. Now, so there's a bit of a battle going on with Sylvaneth. You've got Leo with his Sylvaneth. He's on table 11 versus James with Maggotkin, and also we've got Sylvaneth on table 9 in the form of Aaron Wilson. Aaron is up against Darren Watson, and he's got his Head Knights of Tzeentch. We've seen him on stream, so that one is going to be a tough matchup. We know Darren's a great player, so obviously Aaron is no mug because he's made it all the way up to table 9, so that's going to be really interesting. Looking at table 10, we've got Craig with his Beast of Chaos versus Jackie with his Flesh Eater Courts. Not surprised to see either of those armies up here. That's a really cool matchup. They're both swearing up against each other at the moment. Table 8, we've got Declan with Blades of Khorne versus Philip with Skaven Tide. Again, Blades of Khorne, you expect to see him up here. Skaven Tide, we expect to see him up here. Table 6, because we've got 7 up on your screen. Table 6, we've got Dan Bradshaw with Skaven Tide versus AD Mac with Mixed Chaos. So Dan Bradshaw, he's chances are Dan's gonna push that one forward and just kind of romp over AD on that one. Table 4, Richie with his Ideneth versus Alex with Mixed Order. That is a really good game. They're both really technically great players, so that's going to be and it's a really interesting matchup. So I'll definitely be bringing you plenty of info on that. Just over my shoulder here, though, probably the biggest surprise is to see Seraphon on table 3, but more than that, it's Seraphon with the Dread Saurian in it. So Dread Saurian, and Jack has been saying that Dread Saurian has won him a couple of games just by eating heroes. So that's it's really impressive to see him up here. He's versus John with Skaven Tide, so John Dale with Skaven Tide. That'll be a really fun thing to watch, and I'll bring you the update later on. That is all I've got for you now. I'm going to be bringing you Ben versus Mark, so it's Daughters of Cain versus Blades of Khorne, and also Tony Moore versus Jack Armstrong. Tony Moore with his Flesh Eater Courts, Jack with his Daughters of Cain. I'm going to be bringing you those updates as well. But for now, I'm going to hand back to Rob and Nathan on the table, and they'll keep you up to date.
Thank you very much, Adam. Appreciate that. What a great job he's doing there. So on the tabletop, as you can see, oh, lovely. Thank you. You're a bit quick with that, Scrivo. Save that. Thank you so much. So there's some the Rattlings. Oh God, the Storm Fiends as they've moved over, Nath.
Yeah.
We're in the shooting phase now for the Skaven, and you've seen most of the weapons are out of range. Most importantly, of the Lord of Change.
Right.
Because they're 24-inch range. So I think going along the Tzeentchian plan that we talked about.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely, he's set up making. 13 in total, right? So that's a very Skaven number. So we're just sharing how many brimstone blue points and brimstone points the units are racking up as they're taking these casualties. So the Tzeentchian player does look like he is just here to rack up as many summoning points as he can and just bring his army back on. But it does mean that his army is being pushed right back into the right-hand side. So
whoa! Now I would say that normally, I'd say that would be an issue normally.
Yeah.
Yeah. However, I would say that you're playing against a far more mobile Tzeentchian army than you would normally expect, because we're not dealing with. We're not dealing with a Tzeentch army. We're dealing with the Change Host.
Right.
Yeah. You're dealing with the Change Host, and I don't know what to say about that, Nath.
Yeah.
So do you want to explain to people what the Change Host does?
So, I've got no idea what the... So, what does the change host do, John? Yeah. So the change host is called the change host because it swaps units from one to the other, but it's going to require a unit to be in a key position for it to change to. So fair enough, it can. So the way it's...
Are you talking about...
The change host,
You're talking some sort of wizard like a summoned...
No, at the moment, so because it's taken that many casualties, so you do the change in the hero phase, I believe?
In the movement phase, I think.
Is it?
Oh no, so summoning's done in the movement phase now.
Yeah.
However, because it's an older book, the change host element might still happen in the hero phase. We'll find out from the tabletop.
So what you summon in, though, doesn't become part of the change host. So you can't swap those around.
Oh, nice.
So
that's nice. I'm glad. I won't lie.
So there is that. I don't know if... obviously, the change host is there for the... I'm not sure if he's going to get much out of the abilities for the change host, swapping units around in that. Especially where he is at the moment. And he has been forced right back. But obviously, it gives him
knew this was happening,
the
right?
battalion. It gives him the control at the beginning of the game. I think that's the main thing that the change host is giving him.
Okay.
Reducing his number of drops. But I mean, I could be wrong. I'm not that clued up on the Tzeentch.
Well, this is most importantly why we put it on the tabletop. Like we've been talking a lot to like all the guys on the top tables, and this is one of those very interesting matchups because Skaven obviously big dogs, big new dogs. 9 Stormfiends is a very different list as well. So I think Michael should be like proud of that. But we're also seeing the Tzeentch change host and whether or not they actually have got some sort of like dark secret that we haven't really all been accounting for in match play. So more than likely when we get to it, the final tables will be, there we go. So we've seen a Bellwind go up now and that's gone on. I assume that's for the Gaunt, there we go, the Gaunt Summoner I think we're going to be measuring. I'm almost certain.
Yeah.
Restev's asking where do I get one of those BOBO measures from. I think they're only available. I don't think the BOBO measures are available for general sale. I think you have to attend the BOBO event.
So yeah, he's just...
however, the stickers are available.
Just seeing where he can place the... he's really dragging out this roll. So, no, he's trying to pass the Balewind Vortex at the moment. And here we go. 1.
So don't forget he's got the Tzeentch Destiny die, so he is going to be able to make it so that he like chooses the result of any of the dice rolls, and that's going to be very, very big realistically.
Okay, he's used his dagger, stabbing those pink horrors to the side of him. Okay.
So while we find out...
Oh, okay, so that was Arcane Sacrifice, not the dagger that he's used to take off that. So that increases the range of the spell.
So while we find out what happens in the hero phase, I think one of the things that we can do is we can take a look at the stats of these two armies and how they match up against each other, because that would be quite fun. I imagine Daniil's not going to be slow with his choices here in the hero phase, because it probably is going to be deciding the game whether or not he's going to be able to push back against those Stormfiends.
Well, I think it's going to be the Tzeentch hero phase that does most of its output. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see.
However, John, I think, is going to bring up our meta of these two
comparison table.
Our comparison table. I think I've been looking for a word for it all weekend, Dave. Thanks very much. There we go. So Tzeentch, red player, and then Michael, Skaven Tide, blue player. So as you can see, the meta percentage. So Skaven, far more popular, especially since the book.
Yes.
Far more popular at 4.6, even though they were a little bit underplayed before. But since AOS 2 came out, Tzeentch have only represented about 31% of the meta, but they are on a 56% win rate, and Skaven are on a 58% win rate. So realistically, it could be either of those two players' game based on the stats. However, here at BOBO, Daniil is very much on the thin end of the wedge, and there's only 3 factions. Daniil is the best performing Tzeentch player, so probably is going to top out at best Tzeentch besting faction for Tzeentch here at BOBO. However, Michael's got loads to play for because there are Skaven all up and down the top tables.
Well, yeah, and you can see from the BOBO meta stat there, 12 of these Skavens. They're just a super popular army, and just shows really how good that book is, I think, at the moment.
Yeah, I would say close to unbeatable, but the stats wouldn't agree with me at that 58%. And then finally, the fun percentage, which BOBO is all about the fun. So the fun percentage for Tzeentch, this is a bit of I think that 0% is a bit of a throwback. These are always picked by old Scrivo himself. 0%, I think that's a throwback to Change Host at one point were very unfun.
Yeah.
But you and me both yesterday cheered at Skaven being, not Skaven, Tzeentch being in the top. On the top tables today.
Yeah,
so
how times have changed.
How times have changed. I was a bit surprised. However, the fun percentage for Skaven, I'm told, at 50% is just whether or not you're using them. If you're using them, 100%. If you're not, 0%.
Yeah, exactly.
And nothing in between.
If you're on the right side of that vortex, then it's a pile of shit. If you're on the other side, it's the best thing since sliced cheese. So there you go. So we've just seen the Change Host mechanic worked, where the Lord of Change is swapped with the unit of Brimstones at the front. So he's flitted a little bit closer, so he can do his special magics.
So did you say he's moved him close? So we're in the movement phase.
Right, he's done the change. So he's swapped places with the Brimstones.
Wow, okay. So he hasn't, like you said, he hasn't got forward a lot. So it does mean, as you can see from the objectives, the purple one in the centre is actually the one that's worth 3, because we're playing shifting objectives. So the top and the bottom, hopefully we'll get them to be the right colours. At green, they are worth just 1 point. However, the one in the centre is going to be worth 3 points. So I think we might see Michael end up on 4 points at the end of that turn. So turn 1, 4 points, and like we saw a bit yesterday with Joe, and especially we saw it in the Saurus versus Gloomspikes game. The Dreadwoods, thank you very much for donating 100 bits. A special shout out to the Dreadwoods, who is actually here at the event. And what's really exciting is on his way to BOBO this morning, there was a hit and run car crash. 2 men fled the scene, and then the Dreadwoods himself went and caught them.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, he's like a superhero dude.
Yeah. Or a policeman. So 4 points for Michael. We saw yesterday in the Gloomspikes Skits book, if you let the points just get away from you, sometimes you're not playing against your opponent, you're playing against the turn counter.
Okay. So we've just seen there's some magic cast. So that was the Blue Scribes casting the spell that lets them re-roll failed casting rolls. Yeah. So that's a fantastic spell to cast with. It just means that, the Tzeentch magic is pretty reliable. That makes it extra reliable. So now he's cast the Chronomantic Cogs, placing them nice and far forward as well. So I wonder whether he's going to speed up time or slow it down. I would have thought he'd slow it down, but I'm not skilled in the ways of Tzeentch.
I'm also not skilled in the cogs. I've seen. I think there's 2 layers to cogs play in match play. There's the I want to speed everything up and make my army go fast.
Yeah.
But we often see or don't see that actually being used particularly well, or you don't tend to see that in many of the top lists that end up winning games.
Yeah.
Because the armies that have the mobility, I'm thinking about things like Idneth as an example, they don't really need it. Yeah. Whereas I think there's a layer above that where the protectiveness that you can gain from defensive cogs is sometimes stronger, but having to pay that amount of points for that ability is big in some ways.
Yeah, I think obviously it doubles down in a Tzeentch army where it gives you the extra spell, and then those spells give you the extra fate points, and then especially if you can double the fate points. So we see models returning back to that unit as he's folded reality and bringing pink horrors back onto the board, which is doubling down on the fact that those pink horrors, as they die again, will give you more blue points, etc. So, and having cast the spell, that gives you the fate points, and then they're doubled as well from the artifact. So basically he's going to have about 5 Tzeentch armies, maybe.
Which is nice because while there are quite a few Tzeentch armies here, they're all summoning like 2 or 3 extra Tzeentch armies on top of their current army. So you're seeing that all across everyone's just bringing extra armies to the game of Age of Sigmar nowadays. It's not even close to fair. That's what I'd say.
Yeah, I think the armies that can't summon have to look at trying. Well, you've got to try and deny summoning. So when you're playing against it, you do have to look at how you're going to.
I think what's going to be really important in this situation also for Dinner is keeping his characters alive. Now,
so we've just seen a double 6 rolled there by the Skaven player. There's 2 6s right there that he's just rolled.
And is this big?
And that's big because the Tzeentch player just tried to cast a Balewind Vortex, rolled an 11, and stopped on a 12.
Wow.
So
that's huge. He was casting it on.
That would be the Gaunt Summoner trying to cast that.
Oh, that is big.
So that was a big stop.
So I got 2 feelings about this. One, I'm really excited for the Tzeentch player. I really want him to do well because I've not really seen this before. Yeah. Number 2, it's change host, so also, and it's Tzeentch with Destiny dice, so also fuck off. Like I'm so torn emotionally in this situation.
Wow.
Sneaky Dan says, no +1 from the Lord of Change. I think the guys know, well, especially Daniil will know whether or not he's getting the +1. He'll have counted it in.
Yeah, well, the General is actually the Gaunt Summoner and not the Lord of Change. Although it's the Lord of Change command ability, so I don't know. Yeah, he would have used it because does the Gaunt Summoner... Yeah, so there is the +1 on at the moment. So he would have rolled a 10 on the dice. The +1 would have made it in the 11. And then that was stopped by a double 6. So... I think that was a big roll. Obviously, the Balewind with the Gaunt Summoner is quite a good combination because the Gaunt Summoner spell is really great at
clearing hordes.
Yeah, just attacking those big units at the moment.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, the Skaven don't have any summoning or ways of healing back these big units.
It also denies him a cast as well. So it's another fate point. Well, 2 fate points because he's doubling it out, right?
Yeah.
So it's actually really impactful. Plus, do you know what? You know, whenever someone rolls high and you roll those 2 double 6s, doesn't matter what. You just love shutting someone down. You're just like, this is sweet. It's over, baby. Yeah, you're not getting a cast, and that's what I like. Yeah.
So that was Gateway we've just seen cast, causing 10 mortal wounds onto the Storm Fiends.
10 mortal wounds. Wow.
And then
So I think one of the things that we could talk about with a big block of Storm Fiends like this is, and Skaven aren't really shy on command points, although maybe we can get an update how many command points the Skaven have. So the Carrot being nearby, and I'm sure the Warlock's nearby as well, but a bit of an inspiring presence. I don't think he necessarily will want to be using the command points for inspiring presence, but it's very, very helpful. And especially as those Storm Fiends aren't the bravest. Yeah, so killing 2 or 3 of them could be really solid. And 10 mortal wounds, is that 2 dead? No, it's 1 dead, because they've got 6.
Yeah, they've got 6 wounds each. Here comes an Aether Void Pendulum. Bearing in mind that the Pendulum will move again in the in-between turns phase. So he's managed to... He's trying to make sure he gets the double tap on it, because it'll smash into them now, but if you keep it within the inch but in front of them, when it moves again in between the turns, it'll do the same, the extra d6. So
one of the really interesting things about the Burning Head choice, and also what's really cool is Daniil has green stuffed the mouth into a beak. So it's the burning beak.
Oh, okay. This is the pendulum.
That's the pendulum.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So that's why he's trying to get the most out of it. He wants to clip both of those units, but no, he's going back to the original plan. Yeah. So he's just going through all the possibilities, being a Tzeentch player, lining up all the different fates.
Of course, he needs to line up all the different ways in which you can access the pathways of the future. But he's decided to go straight there. and that'll be another D6 mortal wounds into that unit.
Which was only one rolled there. So,
that happens all the time.
Yeah.
Every time. So that means 11 mortal wounds are going into that unit now.
Yeah, I think so. The Storm Fiends have taken 11 mortal wounds so far from the hero phase,
which is pretty big.
Yeah.
So we were talking about output, weren't we, really? And what's nice about Daniil's list is it looks like what it does is it does a lot of elite damage in the mortal wounds going into the Storm Fiends, and the Storm Fiends really are the major threat, although he still has to, and he's going to be very, very upset that he didn't get the Gaunt Summoner off, because clearing those holds off the objectives, because it's number of wounds on an objective, means he's not going to get around to it till turn 3.
All right, so far the Storm Fiends have actually taken 12 mortal wounds, but because you got the Storm Fiends with the shock gauntlets, they've got the extra wounds, so they got 7 wounds each.
So he's only lost 1 at the minute.
So yeah.
Only lost 1.
One model.
Yeah, it was interesting actually, because I imagine both those 3 models are going to be the ablative wound markers. So you've actually got 21 wounds in the unit from the 3 shock gauntlet Storm Fiends before you get to the meat, which is the shooting, which is what you want to get rid of.
Yeah. So especially in this army where.
Especially in this army.
Wow, so we're just getting an update on the fate points and blue points. So 14 fate points so far, 16 blue points, and 20 brim points.
Wow.
So
and they can all go up now.
So they'll go up at the end of the movement phase. He can use those to basically summon
a lot.
Several hundred points worth of models, yes.
All right, okay, well, join us again in a minute to find out exactly what that looks like on the tabletop. I'm really excited. This game is honestly riveting. I just kind of want to watch it happen as it as it unfolds. Please stay with us, let people know it's on. But right now, we're going to find out what's happening on the other tables with Mr. Chucklebutty himself.
Thanks, guys. Okay, yeah, I'm going to give you a bit of a quick update of the other tables that you're not watching. So table 1 then, which is being played on table 5. This is Ben with his Daughters of Cain versus Mark with his Blades of Corn. So Ben had turn 1, gave it to Mark. Mark then moved up, took all the objectives. Ben, when coming in, deploying and dropping in, he dropped in just close enough to then claim all of those objectives back, and is hit hard back at Mark. So many of his objective capturing units have been decimated. So they've just rolled priority, and Mark has won that turn 2 priority. So if Mark seems to think if he'd lost that, Ben had the game pretty much in the palm of his hand, and now there's a chance to get that back. Now we've got a really similar thing going on table 6, which is Dan Bradshaw versus AD Mac. You've got Dan with the Skaven Tide, AD with his Mixed Chaos. AD's a 1-drop army, so dropped first, took first turn, moved up, grabbed all the points. Dan's come in with his Beast of Chaos, with his Skaven Tide, fired forward, is contesting all of those points with him now. But the combat that's going on right now is pretty much going Dan's way, completely going Dan's way actually. And they both agree that if turn 2 priority goes to Dan, then the game is basically Dan's. If it goes to AD, then he's got a chance of clawing it back purely because he might be able to get a bit more going on. But all of AD's characters essentially will be dead if Dan gets that turn. And pretty much all of his frontline guys will be dead. So it'll just be the kind of midline units that will be left. So it'll be really hard for AD to pull that back if that does happen. Skipping a little bit back up then, we've got Tony versus Jack. Tony with the Flesh Eater Courts versus Jack with Daughters of Cain. Tony won turn 2 priority, which was again really big because Jack's got all of the points at the moment, and he's got all of the board presence and a way higher model count than Tony. Jack also has fired his Marathi to pin back a zombie dragon in all the way back in Tony's deployment zone. And Marathi is just sat there, just taking the 3 wounds every turn. And then they're not even rolling dice for that, because the zombie dragon is definitely going to be doing 3 wounds to her. So they're literally just turning the count around 3 more each turn. But that's keeping a big amount of Tony's army way out of way out the mix. So it's a tough one. That it does look like it's Jack's at the moment. There's no reason to say that Tony can't pull that back at all, especially because he's a great player. Just over my shoulder here, we've got this Seraphon versus Skaven type battle. And what we've seen rather miraculously is, so this is Jack with a Seraphon. Rob's in a panic, having a little run. So we've got Jack with his Seraphon versus John with his Skaven tide. Jack he took turn 1, teleported Dreadsaurian, teleported him forward, made a 9-inch charge on the reroll, he managed to fire in. He already holds all 3 objectives. He fired into a whole load of a unit of 20 clan rats, and with his very first attack, the bite of the Dreadsaurian, killed 18 of those clan rats straight away, and with the remaining attacks, just managed to pop the last 2. So there's a big screen has been taken out. And it sounds like, so the battle I was just talking about, the table 6, Dan Bradshaw versus Eddie Mack, the priority looks like it's just gone AD's way, so it looks like he's potentially holding Dan off for at least another turn. So we've got this Seraphon battle going on behind me. That looks fantastic. Skipping over to table 4, just behind them, Richie versus Alex. They're both, like I was saying earlier, they're both such technical players, and they're already having a great game, really playing well, both of them. Alex dropped, he out-dropped Richie. This is the first time this tournament, and first time in a really long time, that he's managed to have the choice whether he goes first or not, because he's an 11-drop army and ended up out-dropping Richie. And he actually said himself, he's like, he much prefers to just have no option, and he's going second all the time. He's so used to doing that. But this time, he said he sat there for ages just trying to decide whether he'd go first or not. So yeah, that's a tight one, that. And with that, I'm going to go and get a bit more stuff. The boys are back at the desk, so I'm going to hand back to them now, and they'll give you the latest on the tables.
Thank you so much, Adam. What a wonderful man. Gorgeous as well. So we're here in the Tzeentch turn. So welcome back. If you've just joined us, it's the Braverborn British Open. It's a match play event, 200 players here in the UK, in sunny Lincoln, the home of the Magna Carta, and, if I'm right, the world's first ever all-female run cotton mill. Now, I'll have to double-check that.
Where did they get the cotton from? Never mind. So, we have seen the Tzeentch movement phase, and now we're into the end of the movement phase. So this is the Tzeentch second deployment phase, maybe?
But a quick recap on exactly what you're seeing. So you can type in ! in lists in the chat if you want to find out exactly what lists are being played. You'll see Michael was given the first turn by Daniil. Daniil outdropped him, so he gave the first turn away. In his first turn, there was a line of blue horrors here, which got blitzed. So we saw the Storm Fiends move over. They then blitzed all of the shooting, and that's basically what we saw done in the first turn. We also saw the Skaven Vortex be both here, here, and here. That's where it is on the board. And you know the Vortex can do a significant amount of damage. We also have seen, so we saw that go out there. In the preceding turn, Daniil has put the pendulum right here. We've also seen some more mortal wounds come out of the Tzeentchian phase, and they ended up doing 12 mortal wounds into that unit in its damage. But what's interesting is because the wounds were put onto the plates, they ended up not doing enough damage to even kill more than one. So 12 mortal wounds still only kills the one of those Storm Fiends. So then the Storm Fiends retaliate. Then we're still into the turn. End of the magic phase into the movement phase.
There's still movement. Obviously, the Lord of Change did that sneaky swap, but the problem is that he's ensnared by the vortex, which means that he can't fly.
He can't fly.
So he's walking. Big Bird is walking. So that's why he's sort of skipping about, trying to find a good place to stand. So we've not quite reached the summoning part of this phase.
No.
Obviously, because that's right at the end of the movement phase.
All right, so while we're letting this happen,
But
I'm pretty certain we can find out. Remember, we tried to find out which factions were playing on the top tables, Nath?
Oh, yes.
Do you want to try and find that out one more time?
Yeah, let's run through those quickly.
Yeah.
Because we have seen some shouts. Big shouts, big falls.
Big shouts, big falls, exactly. So on the top tables, you've got some pretty interesting matchups, and so we're not covering table 1, but everyone in all of the matchups you're about to see are in the top bracket. So they've all won 3 games and are going into round 4 with 4 games, with potentially 4 games to win. So you've got Blades of Corn by Mark Wildman against Daughters of Cain, Mr. So Hot right now, Ben Sava. I don't think that's going Ben's way.
No? Oh, that's interesting, because that Blades of Corn is... We've seen a couple of those now, lists with the Blades of Corn being led by Archeon. It seems to be a popular way to run that book now at the moment. Archeon getting the crazy movement. Yeah, he gets loads of buffs, gets to move 30-odd inches, I think, across the board. And having a 6-inch pylon, I believe, somehow he gets hold of. So, turns Archeon into a bit of a monster.
He has got the monster keyword, but yeah, he finally might well be the model to strike fear into that he's always wanted to be. Next we've got Flesh Eater Courts versus Daughters of Cain as well. And then you've got, and I think, so this is an amazing game. So Flesh Eater Courts, Daughters of Cain, I'm kind of expecting anyway, but that is 2 famous names. That's Tony Moore versus Jack Armstrong.
Okay.
So that's going to be very tense and really interesting. I think potentially a grudge match after the South Coast GT, where the same game went down. And listen, Skaven and Seraphon, this is the same Skaven list run by the same guy, John Dale, that we saw when we did the Sheffield Slaughter coverage.
Yes, that's right.
However, he's now up against Seraphon, and let me just say this out loud, with a Dread Saurian who's won 3 games. This upsets me all day long.
Well, those Dread Saurians are bent as bananas, aren't they?
So he shouldn't be up there. He knows it. So and John's a very tight player. John is like, I need to make sure you get knocked down.
I am looking at the table. There is still a Dread Saurian on the table.
Yeah, he's still there right now. Then you've got Gloomspike Gitz versus Mixed Order. That's played by Richie from Just Play.
Yeah.
Mixed Order is played by one of the Scribes guys himself, Alex. So really exciting. He's been playing Mixed Order a while. Gitz, Nathan, you're rooting for Richie and the Gitz, right?
Yeah, that's right. So he's got, from what I've heard, he's got quite a few endless spells. So he's playing to the side of the Gitz, which uses the magic dominance that you get, especially when the moon is shining on you. So yeah, cool. Good to see them on the top tables.
And this scenario, especially because they're all playing shifting objective, this scenario specifically suits them, I'd say. Then there's the match we're covering, Disciples Tzeentch versus Skaven. Then you've got Skaven versus Mixed Chaos. That's AD Mac himself versus Skaven. And Skaven is run by the English UK master, Mr. Dan Bradshaw. AD, the organiser, or one of the organisers in the Sheffield Slaughter. I'm almost certain, now I know Skaven really get his go. Yesterday he played his oldest friend.
Yes,
and that is old. His oldest friend. Yesterday with Flesh Eater Courts, and he loathes both of those 2 books. I don't think AD will mind me saying it.
No.
And he beat AD. We saw a scream from the he beat Pete. We saw a scream from the table.
Yeah.
Now he might beat Skaven, so he's on for the 1-2.
Yes. I've just heard a shout from that table about 10 minutes ago, and it did sound like a shout of elation from the old man himself. So yeah. Fingers crossed for him. Looking great.
Yeah, I'm really hoping he does well. Then you got Legions of Nagash against Beasts of Chaos, which we are seeing actually. That's not that game. And then you're seeing Blades of Corn versus Skaven, so they're all up there again. Flesh Eater Courts and Sylvaneth. That's not actually Flesh Eater Courts and Sylvaneth. That's actually Hedonites of Slanesh versus Sylvaneth.
Oh, okay.
Flesh Eater Courts versus Beasts of Chaos and Sylvaneth versus Maggotkin and Nurgle. So two Sylvaneth up there. Just a note about the Sylvaneth at the bottom. That's being played. That's the Dreadwood being played.
Wow.
Yeah. And I went over and spoke to him, and he actually, he very interestingly has been playing defensive Dreadwood.
Oh, defensive Dreadwood.
Defensive
That's an
Dreadwood.
unusual combination of words.
Yeah, although the army is up against, and the thing that we did miss is in that top bracket, it's missed on the chart, is
The Darkling Covenants.
Darkling Covenants on 3-0, and they're against Idleth Deepkin. Idleth Deepkin run by James Tinsdale, solid player, knows what he's doing. Steve Dooley, the best Darkling Covenants player in the world, he's like, I don't even need a battle tome. Yeah, I will play this out. Right, he is so enthusiastic about doing it. And what's really interesting is James is going to be like, what the hell does your army do?
Nobody knows.
What the hell does that army do?
Only Steve.
Yeah. So I think it's really interesting. So we might be the end of round 1 going to our tabletop, and we might be seeing a priority roll. Is that right? No.
No priority roll just yet.
So where are we at, Nath? Catch me up.
So we're in end of the movement phase now, and this is where we see handfuls of models being brought back onto the field. So I think
we are seeing. We're just finding some info from the tabletop.
Cool. So yes, so he's bringing models back onto the table. We still got. This is crazy that it's still only the first turn as well.
Okay.
That Tzeentch turn was a massive one. So he's going to have to speed up a bit, and here he is dropping some brims onto the field.
Daniil, if you're listening back, this is meant with love, but it's a core. I'm forgetting the ideal inside this game that we all finish 5 turns. Yeah, that's just a fact.
Yeah.
So let's get that finished and get it done. Otherwise, towards the end of this show, we'll be getting all sorts of salty. Nath, you agree?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, finish your games. Otherwise, you're going to start getting cussed, right? But currently, you're in the good books. Yeah, so let's see.
Well, I mean, this is what one of the things we've come to see is something that has seemed to have fallen out of favour is the Tzeentch army. I think a lot of it was super popular, and then after the last General's Handbook, a lot of the Tzeentch players did feel hard done by the points changes and some of the FAQ changes to some of the battalions, I think. But having been on the receiving end of a Tzeentch magic phase, I still think they're crazy strong. Although, as we see now, these long hero phases, my own army is the same problem really. It does tend to drag out the game a lot, so it's just something you have to be aware of. If you're bringing a magic heavy list, that you've got to really push through the spells and try and get all the moves and everything done.
Yeah.
So a lot of armies, like the Flesh Eater Court's a lot more simple because it's just a combat army. So it's all about fast movements, get straight in, get stuck into rolling your attack dice. Other armies which are a lot more subtle, so like the Tzeentch, like my own Gloomspite army, where you've got, I think movement is a lot more important because you've got all of these little overlapping buffs and things. They can take longer to do. So I'm very conscious of it myself when I'm playing that. Especially in a tournament, you've really got to push through. It's fine if you're just playing a friendly game. You can take your time and just make sure that everything's lacquer. But really push for it with if you're in a tournament in this sort of situation.
Yeah, I'd agree. Also, one of the things that we saw previously, if you take competitive AOS as a whole, right from the start in the get-go, like when the Tzeentch book came out, and especially a lot of the new models, kind of Tzeentch armies were one of 2 builds. They were all Zangor heavy previously, and we saw a lot of Skyfires when they were the hotness, and now and then all of those players, the Zangor players, have kind of moved on to Beast of Chaos because it's just a better book, or they're better models inside a Beast of Chaos book in a very odd way. Yeah. So you've seen that, or you ended up being Chain Host Demon heavy, and it's those players that we saw, I think, kind of fall off the map. But so that's why it's really nice to see Daniil out here. I do really like the brim, the pink-blue brim mechanic inside the game. it's really, really interesting and tactical. There's a beautiful fluidity to it because you've got so many options that it's really challenging to know exactly what to do. And then as an opponent, like in this situation, and not to take anything away from Michael's got some tricks. Skaven are tricksy, so that's a fact.
Skaven have the same sort of mechanics that they can use on. They do have an awesome amount of magic that they've got at their disposal. The lore, the Grey Seer lore is full of great spells, and the spells that are on their basic war scrolls, especially on the Vermin Lords, are fucking great.
They are really solid. Rachel, thank you very much for subscribing. Thank you for everyone for subscribing or watching us back live. Let us know where you're watching from. It would be cool to know. Yesterday we had like people from all around the world, and also if let us know who you're rooting for. If you're on Twitch, if you're rooting for blue, you can use the blue emoticon that is in the chat. And if you're rooting for red, which is Disciples of Tzeentch, you can put the red emoticon in.
Right. So now here we see. This is the end of the movement phase, so the vortex is ticking off, and it's attacking all those units. So some of the units have been summoned back on, taking casualties, and there we go. That's the vortex. That's what it does. It just keeps ticking away all the time.
All the time. But we know Daniil knew that it's going to do that, right?
Yeah.
So there's some intent here, I would argue. Potentially to get some more points in the next turn. In the chat, French Baron says the coverage has been top-notch this weekend, guys. Our pleasure. Thanks very much. Nick J. Fowler is red. Spit on Pigeons is red. Scott J. Baker's red. The French Baron's red. But Luvo's all about the blue. If I was Michael Wright as an opponent, defo getting ready to be slow played, he reckons blue. And Stunty says he's all about the Jet the Dog. Yeah. Matt Pashby is watching from the Pacific Northwest in America. It's 3:30 a.m., which is great.
So that vortex action it's done about 15-16 mortal wounds to the Tzeentch army just from that one spell.
That activation.
Yeah, but the Tzeentch player, obviously that would hurt a lot of armies. The Tzeentch player, all it's done is just generated more blue points and brim points. So
if you strike me down, I will become more powerful than you could possibly imagine.
It's just it's a bit of a mind fuck what's going on watching these two armies play each other.
So one of the things when you do the coverage, when you pick the armies, for instance, we've avoided up until today trying to put Skaven or Flesh Eater course on. We all know, you guys and I, we all know how it works. So watching them play is only going to be like a tense game of chess, which is very exciting and is almost likely to be what we see in the final game. However, leading up to it, we try and pick things out which are interesting and or odd. And honestly, apart from Daniil and maybe a few people around the world, no one's running competitive change host. Yeah. So and they've dropped off the map. So I'm excited to watch it because it's just tense.
Yeah. Well, it's super complex. I think it's really cool, this combination. Two fairly complex armies. So we're into the Tzeentch shooting phase. So you've got the horrors using their guns, whatever guns horrors have got. Spitting, fire farts, whatever they do.
So they've got wind launchers and rattling cannons.
versus
fart launchers
demon
is better.
farts. Yeah,
I prefer fart launchers, I won't lie.
So yeah, crazy rat shooting versus weird demon shooting. But yeah, we're seeing. Well, it's not. I mean, it's not the most vicious of shooting. We've seen a couple of clan rats die here and there, but just picking away.
So, Nathan, have you got any bets in? Who do you think? Who's your money on in this particular game?
At the moment, bearing in fact that it's only a 5-turn game, and I do like the way the Tzeentch players played, but I do think the Skaven have got a very commanding position in the center of the board. And it's just how much damage the Tzeentch can do. It was an impressive amount of damage, but I think the vast majority of it comes from the hero phase, and it just wasn't enough. The next priority role is going to be very important, because those units of Storm Fiends are now within range to threaten the key pieces of the Tzeentch army, which are the heroes at the back. So I think the priority role is going to be very important.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. What I found really interesting, actually, if you look at this army, if you look at the Daughters of Cain army we saw play yesterday, when you actually see the interactivity of when damage is done, you tend to get a real scope of just how complex Age of Sigmar is, because while the movement phase is obviously key in delivering options to where you and specifically damage to where you want it, with ranged weapons like you're seeing here with the Storm Fiends, or even magic, the threat ranges are different and more complicated to work through in some ways.
Yeah.
So you've got, especially when it polarizes to such a strong degree in this sense, so you've got shooting and magic. So they're both ranged, whereas what we saw with Ben didn't mind giving up the priority roll, as an example, yesterday, because he was already locked in combat, which is where he does his damage.
Yeah.
So it was just, you've got a really fascinating kind of like overlapping set of like, it's why each game, especially when you're playing against each game, your army works so different. It's a really beautiful game.
I think this is really cool because the Tzeentch have got magic dominance here, but the Skaven have actually got so they rely on magic as well for damage output, but they have got that unit which doesn't rely on magic for its output, and that's that big unit of Storm Fiends. In order for the Tzeentch to attack, they have to be close enough to use their magic, but then that means that they become within range of the Storm Fiends. So yes, we're seeing some pink horrors charging in.
So that's massive. The pink horrors actually charging in there. If they can stay locked in combat, Daniil is not going to care about giving the priority roll away, because keeping that unit locked in combat means they're only shooting into the pinks, which means his Lord of Change is alive. Although he's still, and he is capped that top objective. It's only getting rid of the 1 point, but he's going to have to make sure that that Michael doesn't run away on the points, because he does have to deal with the Storm Fiends and the unit behind it just to clear them off.
It's going to be important where the objective shifts to. At the moment, it's in the center on the pink one. If it shifts to the Tzeentch side, that's pretty important. But I do think the Skaven have got the numbers to take it back if they win the priority. It's just whether the Skaven can now clear those pink horrors off to clear up their shooting, which they might be able to do in this
from
combat.
The clan rats?
Yeah.
From bloody clan rats, they're not doing anything. Yeah, they'll be in there. They'll just be like, we don't want to be here. Yeah, we want to leave.
No, the clan rats aren't terrible in a fight, but they're not great. But let's see where those shock gauntlets are, and because I think they might hurt the horrors. Might see a few smashed up demons.
Yeah, you're right. The shock gauntlets could do the work, but if they're not there and they've been tagged in the right place, this could be really, really, really impactful, which I find quite interesting. So while we find out what happens in this combat phase and we move on to the priority roll for the next turn, we're going to get an interview now from Mr. Chuckabutty himself, and he's going to be talking to two men. One whom is a hero to everyone at home, and the other one is a villain. But I won't let you know which one's which.
So one of these two men is apparently a villain, and one is a hero. But I think you're both fairly heroic. So right, you've just finished your game. It's pretty swift on that, about an hour.
Early game, quick game.
Great. So Steve, tell us how did it start?
It all went wrong.
Let's skip ahead. It didn't go Steve's way, and he has taken a loss on that one. So come on, from turn one.
So from turn one, I outdropped him. I had to take turn one because if I hadn't have done, he would have jumped on the objectives. I wouldn't have been able to shift him off. The plan was take the objectives, hold him for a turn, try and hold him off for a second turn, score maximum points, and then just pick away and try and outpoint him right at the end. But it just didn't go my way. Really didn't. His dice were on fire, so just bad news for me.
Bit of a battle of attrition for you, but Jamie went your way, so take us through your side.
I deployed aggressively thinking Steve would take first turn. I put 9 eels in the sea to know if he did move up, I could come around behind. Basically hit them as a pincer, zap the big dragon off, and then high tide was just too strong for them because I just go first everywhere. So Steve can't even alternate. I'm just going to I struck all his models before he could do anything, really. And then that was game. There's nothing Steve could do. He moved up, made defense, and was like, right, I'm bunkered down, scored max points. I was like, let's see what happens.
So
That was literally all I could do against that. There was nothing else I could have done. My army is just not built for that sort of thing. It's really not.
I mean, you're saying this now, but like last night when we were just because we kind of broke, we got the draw up, and we were all a bit like, oh, unlucky, you know. Well, you got 3, you've had a good run so far, but shame it's not going to go any further. And you were a bit like, you never know, you never. And now you're like, oh well, you know, it was never gonna.
It's all about positive mental attitude. I thought I was coming into this 3-0. I thought I'm going to have him here, and it just didn't happen. But it's always the next game. I can still go 4-1 and walk out. Even if I lose, I can still walk out with my head held high.
Best Darkling Covens player in the world, right?
In the world.
Basically the only one. But
I can attest to that. I played him.
I mean, you didn't play him very long.
No, but I think the scenario and the army was against Steve. It's not too much to do with play. It's more about war score rules, really.
So as far as you're concerned now, so you've had a draw and now 3 wins.
Yeah.
And 3 major wins, okay. So you could go another major win and you potentially wrestle a podium, maybe?
Potentially, but I think because there's so many players here, I think there might be 6 players on 5-0, so it might be difficult. But we're going to try.
Brill, excellent. Well, Rob's just taking a bite of a sandwich, so I'm going to pick up with some updates. Thank you, gentlemen. I'll let you go and go fill in your scorecards. Thank you very much. So I'm going to pick up with Dispossessed Watch. So what we've got is we've got Tuggy and LLV. LLV is functioning for some reason. We must have changed his batteries or something. He is doing okay. He's managed to double turn his opponent Josh, Legions and Nagash. And that seems to be the only way he's holding any sort of ground at the moment. He's just double turned him into turn 2, and it very much does look like it's kind of holding back the tide with a sieve sort of thing. And it's yes, he's double turned him. Yes, he's going to have the position initially, but I really think Josh is going to absolutely flatten him. But we'll see. Tuggy, however, so his deployment, he didn't manage to cover when deploying. He didn't manage to cover for any sort of deep striking. So what's happened is a whole load of Ripperdactyls dropped in behind, fired in, took out his ranged units, which are really the crux of that dispossessed army. So Phil's Seraphon absolutely torn him apart. I just wandered over there just before coming back here, and it is a mess. There are dead dwarfs everywhere. There's so little left of Tuggy's army already. So I've got a few more updates on the top 10 as well. So looking at table 9, we've got Darren with his Head Knights Dinesh versus Aaron. This is the run-off. You've got turn 1, Aaron took. He then kind of held all the objectives. Darren came in, charged in, contested those objectives. Aaron's just won the roll-off again, so has just taken priority on turn 2. They're currently 5 for 5, and it's apparently Darren was saying that Aaron was really light-hearted and kind of stood back and just tossing his dice, really jovial, really relaxed. And the second there's actually a chance now that he's going to actually hold Darren off, apparently Aaron is all very serious face. He's really concentrating, and all the measuring is getting really tight. Looking at table 6, so the commotion we heard earlier was AD getting the priority for that turn 2. So it absolutely did. It does mean that AD gets to hold off for at least another turn. Table 8, we've got Declan with Blades of Corn versus Philip with Skaven Tide. So Philip didn't manage to cast Vortex, so that didn't go off straight away. So you've got 3 Bloodthirsters looming over the Skaven Tide at the moment. And there was no Death Frenzy in turn 1 at the start on one of them, but in turn 2, he has managed to get Death Frenzy off on a unit of Plague Monks. And this is if they die, they do mortal wounds or do attacks back. And they've just piled into a big unit of demons. I've completely forgotten the name of them, but a big unit of them and Bloodletters. I knew it would come to me. So a big unit of Bloodletters. So chances are they're just going to pop each other. Bloodletters are going to swing, kill. They're going to then die and do the mortal wounds back. So those 2 units are probably just going to cancel themselves out. That's all I've got for you now. I am going to hand back to Rob and Nathan. Rob's finished chowing down on whatever he was eating. I think he was actually eating a bacon sandwich. I heard him earlier. I saw him earlier. So if ever he tells you he is vegan, he's really not. So I'm going to hand back to the boys now, and I'll see you shortly.
I'd like to say something mean about him, but I
Crunch,
respect
crunch.
and care about him a lot. So listen, if you just joined us, welcome. Thank you for being here. We are in. We're at the BOBO 2019. 200 players playing match play AOS. It's very exciting. We're into round 4, so that means there's only about 20 to 24 people in the top bracket who could potentially win the event. Of those, there are 2 players, Michael and Daniil, that we're watching right now. Skaven versus Disciples of Tzeentch. Very, very interesting to see Disciples of Tzeentch on the tabletop. They got to outdrop Michael and the Skaven Tide, so that meant that they gave the first turn to Michael. Michael took the turn, moved into the centre field with a unit of Storm Fiends right here, unloaded, did some shooting. Daniil then responded with a lot of magic into the Storm Fiends, did some summoning, and most importantly, locked a unit in combat here for shooting. Why that becomes massive is the priority roll has just gone to Tzeentch in a pivotal turn, I would say. Even though he locked the unit in Storm Fiends out from shooting.
Yeah, so it was great. So we can also see the shifting objective has shifted right to the top where Tzeentch would have wanted it. So that's the objective he controls.
So that's massive as well.
Flickering away as it shifts up there. The so Tzeentch magic has also been thwarted, I believe, with the Blue Scribe spell, where he can force a spell through on a 2-up, that one being stopped again. So Skaven still having a few says about which way the magic goes, but
well, see, this is the thing about the new kids in the new kids on the block when it comes to the Chaos Pantheon. Yeah, they just do not care. They've smashed their way in there in Age of Sigmar, and they're like, there are 4 Chaos Gods, and they're like whispering in the background, no, there are 5. And Tzeentch isn't quite sure how it feels about
this new
the young pretenders to the crown. I'm very happy the Skaven book's out now. So
that grey and clean one's kicking ass. So we've seen the Balewind Vortex has been brought to the table. So that'll be the Gaunt Summoner with his little familiar friends, all sat around a Balewind Vortex. So we should see a lot more damage.
A question we've been asked about, and I'm interested too, is are the Storm Fiends out of coherency?
They are at the moment, but
after priority, the pendulum, which was lined up right in front of the Storm Fiends, because you can't move the direction, it went through the Storm Fiends.
Yes.
And ended up doing again
maximum damage, six
more wounds. So that means another Storm Fiend was killed. So I think what I've seen happen here is he elected to intentionally take one from the centre, or was that where he put the wounds on?
That's just where the wounds happen to be. So
wow.
that model, obviously, though, the pink horrors are in that combat, locked in that combat.
So that's just here,
and that
in the
will
Storm Fiends.
allow him to pile in and sort of regain his coherency. But it depends. I mean, obviously, if he retreats the pink horrors away, then that is going to cause a problem for the Storm Fiends, and they will have to lose those 2 models. But is he going to want to do that? Because he does want to trap the Storm Fiends into shooting his horrors and not his heroes at the back. Now, another option he's got is to charge in the blues that are right in front there.
So that would be these ones here.
These ones there. Wrap them around the Fiends into that gap, preventing the Fiends from being able to pile in and close coherency.
Yeah, I think what's important. So if you guys aren't sure why that is important, so what ends up happening is this unit here, where there's a divide, one half of those 2, the player whose unit it is gets to choose, will end up dying if they're not in coherency. So it's a cool way. So it's a nice rule that they introduced in Age of Sigmar 2 to stop daisy chaining or kind of like lines being formed. So you can just eat out a unit in the middle. And Nathan, you sometimes do that with a giant by putting stuff down your pants.
That's right. Yeah, it's a great way. If you've got models that can pick off specific models, like the Gargant, which is probably the best model in all of Age of Sigmar, then you can do the same thing. But I don't think it's going to be a problem for the Skaven player. As you can see, that Stormfiend unit is going to be the target of a lot of Tzeentchian magic and shooting and however Tzeentch does damage. And you can see already those units, those models that were out of coherency have died already, just to the pendulum, which has just dropped out of the sky, and some of the other Tzeentch of magic. I think there was a gateway earlier or something that took off another model earlier.
That's a lot of mortal wounds
Yeah.
in this stage. So we talk about gun lines, and we talked about shooting coming back in Age of Sigmar. And Tzeentch gun lines have always been a thing, and this is some really nice elite shooting that you're seeing here. Because the Storm Fiends are in a tough spot against this. Now I talked to Michael. Michael's absolutely savvy about all of the rules. I think he knew about the matchup going in. He knew it was going to be a tough one. And he's he's lost the 3 combat Storm Fiends, which he cares really not about. So there's 6 shooting Storm Fiends in there, and he's got the wind launchers and obviously the rattling cannons, and they're very, very close now. They're right in range, and they're going to be able to do what. Jabba AOS, thank you so much for the bits donation. That's appreciated.
Yeah, cheers, mate.
It's appreciated everyone who's here watching live. Let us know who you think is going to win, Skaven Tide or Disciple Tzeentch. You can show your love by just using one of the emoticons for blue or red if you're a subscriber. So that's pretty cool.
So here we go. The Tzeentch hero phase is one of the longer hero phases that you'll see in the game. So the comment from the table boss has just made me crack up. He wishes his dick was as long as a Tzeentch hero phase. He thinks it is, but I don't know. It's going to be humongous.
That's the thing about deception and Tzeentch, right? It's
yeah. That'll bring a tear to your eye.
So Colonel Cabbage is actually a lovely man, by the way, who was tuned into the show. He says his clubmate is Dan, and he's all about it. He's rooting for him, I think. I would say that it's going to be very important to see the output that comes out of those Storm Fiends. Now, those Storm Fiends need to be locked up in shooting. Right. Where the issue comes, getting the double turn that Daniil has got is obviously always really solid, Nath.
Yeah.
Yeah, you always want to do that. However, the reactiveness of having 2 turns done against you. So while he might send a unit in, there we go, and we've seen a charge, I'm almost certain.
Oh, no, that's the burning head.
The burning head has been cast. Do you want to give them reroll 1s?
Well, he's run it through his own unit.
Wow. This is honestly really cool.
So that unit, and he's taking models out of the middle of the unit, breaking the coherency of his own unit.
That's crazy. That is crazy. So that he can summon round it, during the hero phase. So he's basically using the hero phase to burn his own army.
Oh, okay.
Then at the end of the movement phase, use all of his summon points to re-add to that army to gain range for charging. Yeah. So it's like some sort of it's a hall of mirrors.
That's crazy. Yeah.
It's really exciting. I got to say, complicated as well, which is why I imagine it's taking a while, but also really, really good. And you got to be pretty efficient with it, right, to make sure it works.
Yeah. So it's a cool army to see played. I do like the intricacies of it. It's very it's like a mindfuck. It's great. It's like somebody said in the chat earlier, it's like seeing Doctor Strange at work. All those funny burning circles in the sky.
But Daniil has got absolutely zero respect for our live stream. He actually said, I don't want to be on the stream, and I'm going to kick the camera every opportunity I get. So I respect that.
Yeah, it is awkward playing lengthways across the table. It does mean you've got to work around.
Listen, one day we're going to improve it, Nathan. We're trying every single time we do the coverage to improve it.
Tripods and gantries and things that we've got up there. So
gantries?
All of that.
Should we get some gantries?
We should. I don't know what that is really, but yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
But that's the important objective. I do wonder it is cool to see the mindfuckery that is the Tzeentch army at work. But that was his hero phase. It resulted in 2 Stormfiends dying and a few clan rats. I don't know if that's enough. Bearing in mind it's a limited, this is the second turn. and the Skaven are sat on the objectives in the center of the board. He's wrapped the top objective around with some brimstones, but they're not exactly the most tanky of units.
Brimstones?
No,
they're tiny little motes of fire dancing in the sun.
I think we might see some Skaven
Kind of
firefighters turn up and put the flames out in a bit.
We need to pour water on it, boss. That's all I need to do.
More wet. So yeah, I don't see how he's going to stop Skaven scoring heavily again next turn.
Well, that's what I said. I think if you go into turn 3 on the priority roll, because the Gaunt Summoner again didn't get up on the Balewind.
He's up on that Balewind,
but he didn't get his spell off.
He can't have got the spell off, or he's not cast the spell. I don't know.
We will find out.
Did the Gaunt Summoner try and cast his Horde clearing spell, or is he even in range, John?
Well,
so I think John's busy.
The table boss is very busy right now doing some things, but he will let us know whether or not the Gaunt Summoner did go for his spell, or was that one of the ones that was unbound.
So did the Gaunt Summoner try and cast his anti-Horde spell?
Everyone watching at home doesn't want to hear that question asked 4 times. That's why we try and hide it in the chat.
He did try and cast it, but the fates were against it. Double one. Twice.
Well, okay. So that actually is pretty massive, because if it was also in turn 1 if you didn't join us.
Apparently the Skaven player is insisting that he did not laugh when that happened. But somehow I think there was some cackle.
I think there may have been some cackling. Do you know what? Oh no, it won't be effective now. And also the very first time it got attempted to cast it was cast on an 11, and it was unbound on a 12. So what you could have seen is both of these 2 units of Skaven clan rats, they could have already lost half their number by this turn. Which is massive, right? And that would have really, really helped Daniil score objectives going into turn 2 and 3.
Well, it's a dice game, isn't it? And Daniil obviously got some dice in his pool of fight dice.
doesn't see that as important.
Yeah, must have been kicking himself.
I will say though that
he's only he's not got that great. So he's only got a 2-2 and a 3 left in the dice pool. So yes, that will make it. Well, that's problematic. So he did start off with some 1s in there, which obviously are great for summoning back horrors in the battle shock phase. But the 2-2 and the 3 are not very useful numbers. So that's not helped him. So yeah, funnily enough, the Tzeentch army has been let down by its by some crucial spell casting. It was the failed Balewind the first turn, and now the failed anti-horde, the Gaunt Summoner spell that it's got on its war scroll, the second turn. Because I think those were the major threats that the Tzeentch had to bring to the. But anyway, he's now summoning. He's into his summoning part of the game.
Talking about speed of the game, Nath, there's still an hour and 23 minutes. Realistically, like deployment and the first 2 turns are usually pretty, depending on what army builds. I think both these players are going to be able to actually pull it through realistically, especially as units start to die off. I mean, those spells would have helped.
Yeah. Oh yeah, those spells would definitely.
So I think we could see that, although the frustrating thing will be for Michael is that he hasn't actually got to like really do anything other than react for a while.
I think he's done it well. He's moved into the center, and then he's just forced the Tzeentch player into seeing just how much damage. The Tzeentch.
Well, let's see what they look like. Let's get a shot of the 2 players. Yeah, they're currently next to each other, so we're gonna be able to see, as well as probably a shot of our gorgeous table boss. There's our table boss. There, he's gonna give a wave to the camera. And on the right there's Michael, and then Daniil's going around to make sure he does his work. So Michael looks tense. and focus in, making sure everything's done right. The table boss there, let's just talk about this for a minute. What? Great pair of cargo shorts,
Yes.
really good work. Yeah, really liking that. And then that is just a lovely
T-shirt.
And
That-
as his T-shirt
look
says,
at the
P is stopped in the
information.
balls.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
He's a biological mine of information.
Yeah,
Or mine
he's
of
but
biological
Michael, by the way, really friendly guy. Even though he's playing Skaven, I really enjoy talking to him on the tabletop. So it's sweet potatoes. Thanks very much, John. Appreciate that. Let's go back to the game. So that's what some top tier wargamers look like there. It's live.
They're alive.
Yeah.
So-
Man, Dollies, I can't believe you're here. Tzeentch versus Skaven. Is it too soon for to back for Tzeentch for being the underdog? We talked about this earlier. I reckon Tzeentch are the underdog in this situation. But we've seen some crazy stuff, right, in the hero phase leading into movement.
Well, here we're in the third Tzeentch deployment phase as he yet deploys more and more models onto the board. Yeah, it's just crazy how much stuff. And he's still deploying them into that vortex. He doesn't seem to care. Because at the end of this will become the Skaven vortex, let me kill a load of stuff phase. Last turn it did 15 mortal wounds.
But he's just
But
putting units
he's still
in there.
putting units in the middle of that vortex, that triangle of death, which just generates more brim points and blue points and fate points and all sorts of.
So it's like it's a summoning. So it's very much like. So what's nice is the core mechanics for the three of the Chaos Gods at least now, both Khorne, Tzeentch, and the Heed Knights of Slaanesh. What we've ended up with is mechanics where as you hit them and you beat them up, especially the demons, you end up with a lot more points. They got points to put units back on the board.
Yeah.
It's really quite cool. Like they like getting stuck in. They almost like the abuse and revel in the chaos, and then outcome more. So we saw that yesterday with the Heed Knights of Slaanesh as well.
Yeah. The Heed Knights particularly great summoning ability. So so now we're into the vortex spell. So he's taking models back off that he's just put on. But yeah, particularly the Tzeentch with the brimstone, well, with their horrors mechanics, do generate a lot of points from taking damage, and that's why he seems just to be dropping them into that zone of of just damage dealing vortex craziness. So I'd be interesting to speak to the Skaven player to see if he thought the vortex was a good thing for him in this game, or actually
Now he's what you mean afterwards, post analysis.
regrets actually casting it. So it's done 9 mortal wounds this turn, having done 15 the turn before.
So 24 mortal wounds.
And then obviously when he cast it the first time, it did put some damage onto those first units that we had across the center.
However, like going into it, we knew that
Probably done about 30 mortal wounds.
which
in 2
Daniil
turns.
wants him to do. This entire commentary now is being done in questions, and we're going to be like, we're not sure. It's honestly really, really interesting. So yeah, 40 mortal wounds into your army sounds terrible, but I think going to Daniil's plan.
It, yeah.
I don't know if he's a hedonite or if he's a disciple of Tzeentch, but it's very Tzeentchian and it's awesome, cool to see on the tabletop. Bill Sousa in the chat there. What a gorgeous man. Thanks very much. I hope you guys are enjoying the T-Sports coverage that you're seeing here. Bit of T-Sports, Nate. You happy about that?
So this, yes, well, not really, but yeah, whatever, call it whatever you want. M Sports. So we went to the Tzeentch shooting phase, which is
So yeah, Tzeentch shooting phase finally in there.
it's not that impressive. We see a few wounds dropping onto the fiends. Yeah, there's it looks like 2-3 wounds. There's one save that Skaven have to make, which they make. So yeah, Tzeentch shooting is not that impressive. The Tzeentch combat we didn't see do that much the turn before, so I don't see this army's got the combat output or the shooting output. All the output is in the hero phase.
Yes.
And having failed the Gaunt Summoner spell, and having failed the Gaunt Summoner casting the Balewind the first turn, has put a dampener on its horde clearing abilities. So it does mean that we've got some pretty scary Storm Fiends left in the centre of the board with big guns.
Bill Sousa, to let you all know, yeah, you're right, Nath, is absolutely. But I think he's going to lock him in combat, as we've talked about.
Yeah.
So then it's not about this turn and what the Storm Fiends can do. It's whether or not they get the priority and they have the next turn to unload. That Lord of Change that you can see in the bottom, who has moved to a little bit, I think outside of 12 of the Rattling Cannons, so that he's only going to really be taking damage from the wind launchers to keep him alive. It's kind of a key component of the army. But you are really starting to see some progression from the Tzeentch now. But like we said at the top of the game, it's whether or not that they can pull it through turns 4-5, because that's what they're playing for. Because they deployed very, very deep the start of in deployment, but they almost had to, because as you can see here, there is the warp hole, so they couldn't. They planned. It's all going to a Tzeentchian plan. They planned to give the turn away.
Well, yeah, he planned to give the turn away. He planned for the vortex to be cast into his horrors so that he could start building up points. But it did mean that he had to deploy his key pieces right at the back, deep in the board. Now, if it was a different deployment, where you played against the widthways, that he would have been forced to deploy differently, because the Skaven have still got the range, and particularly with the gnaw hole positioning, which you pointed out just now, that gnaw hole at the top was in a place where he could have flicked his shooting unit up to the top, so it did give him width to be able to target Tzeentch heroes if they were too far forward. And obviously the vortex itself, really scary against heroes. You don't want that anywhere near your heroes.
No, not at all.
So
I did see someone yesterday roll 3 6s with their vortex on 3 different heroes, and he was over the moon.
Yeah, I'll bet he was.
He
I bet his
absolutely.
opponent wasn't.
The vortex doing the work, as always.
So yeah, the vortex is a long range threat. So it's pushed him right back, meant that the Skaven were given the first turn, were able to swamp the middle of the board where the objectives are.
So the big question, I think now, it's not, I feel, I'm really excited to see what Michael does in his turn. I think that Daniil is in a commanding position, but I don't think he's necessarily against his opponent in this moment. He's up against the scenario. He has to go and score those points.
Yeah.
We'll come back to this game in a minute and find out exactly how it's going to continue to progress. But first off, we're going to find out what's happening in the rest of the tournament with the gorgeous and effervescent Mr.
Stop it, you. Right, I'm going to give you a little whip through of what's going on the table so far. So I'm going to start with Dispossessed and Wanderer Watch. So with Dispossessed, Tuggy versus Phil with the Seraphon. As we heard earlier, Tuggy made a bit of a mistake in deployment and left a big gap in his back lines. Got absolutely destroyed. And he's been pulled apart. He has lost that game outright. He's pretty much been tabled as well, I think he was. But they're all packed away. That game is now done. So Tuggy's definitely lost that game. LLV, however, versus Legion of Agash. LLV, they were playing a really tight game, playing a really good clean game. He's also taken off Arkan the Black, so that his general is now gone. So none of the Grimghast can come back. None of them can be summoned back and bolstered and reinforced. And he's just picking off as many Grimghast as he can. He's got his LLV has his dwarves, the Thunderers in the back, right in the back lines of Josh's deployment zone, and he's very much creating a massive distraction piece. And there's a zombie dragon that's just turned around and is going for him now. So he was just saying to me there, just kind of out of Josh's earshot, he's like, that's exactly what I wanted him to do. It's pulling the main guy away, so hopefully he can get his other guys in and score more of those points. At the moment it's 5-2 to Josh. But there is a chance, it hinges massively on the priority roll, but there is a chance that LLV can pull that back. So we might see 2 wins from Dispossessed, which, I mean, it's a might, it's a big ask, but we'll see. Tables 92 and 94 then for the Wanderer players. We've got Will with his Wanderers. He is up against Simon with Skaven. Currently 10-10, but Will looks like he's really thin on the ground in terms of models. And he was just saying himself, he's really unlikely to win it. It's not an impossible, but he's feeling like it's really unlikely. Looking at Keith, Keith versus Gary with his it was Maggotkin. It's not Maggotkin. It's actually a Gloomspike Gitz army, and it's a beautiful army. And all the scenery and everything is all blue and all painted up. I'm sure we'll see some photos. If you've looked at any of the photos where Chris, there's some blue squigs with some big blue mushrooms scenery. That's the ones. They're stunning. I think there was some people didn't turn up, so we've had to fill in and swap some opponents over. In terms of how they're doing, for the Wanderers, they've both scored 2 secondary objectives, and looks currently like they're both likely to lose both games as well. So they'll both go 4 losses. So they might head in with 2 secondaries and both 4 losses. So you're getting really specific there in terms of how the draws will happen, because you quite often get drawn in the same way against each other. So in terms of how your record is so far. So they're almost exactly matched. So it could be an incredible, epic Wanderers battle for the win, and we will get a definitive winner if they manage to face off against each other in that. Skipping right back up the sharp end then. So basically from bottom table to top table. Table 1, we've got Ben with his Daughters of Cain versus Mark with his Blades of Corn. Currently 10-5 to Mark. Ben is feeling like he's on the ropes at the moment versus Mark, but it's so much. They both said the next priority roll is huge, because that will basically decide the game for them. It will be basically, if Mark gets it, it's curtains for Ben. If Ben gets it, there's a possibility, and there's a good chance he's going to win. It'll just carry on. It'll be as good a chance as normal, you know. Table 2, this is Tony versus Jack. Jack's already sat down. He's really confident. They're equal on points, but most of Tony's big guys are all gone. And Jack can just hear a priority roll off shouting going on between Ben and Mark, so I don't know what's gone on there. But so yeah, Jack's really confident. He was just saying, I'm pretty sure it's mine. He said, I think Tony's unlikely to win this. I looked at Tony, I said, is that about right? Shook his head. He was like, not a chance. So Tony is fighting for that one. He is absolutely not letting that one go. And they're equal on points, and there's every chance that either one of them could take it. Jack is massively up on models and board presence, but Tony is not down, and he's not a crap player. Table 3, this is over my shoulder. This is Jack versus John. This is the Seraphon. This is the kind of nosebleed area for Seraphon up here. The Dreadsaurian has been taken down by Plague Monks, so unfortunately that's not ideal. It's such a huge chunk of his army has just gone in one go. Jack was up on points, but John had yet to score. So in their turn, the next priority, sounds like if John wins that, he's won the game. It's very as simple as that. Also over my shoulder here, we've got Richie versus Alex. You've got mixed order with Alex with mixed order versus Richie with his Idenf Deepkin. And every time I walk over there, they've both got great big smiles. They're having, like, as Richie put it, he said they're having a belter of a game. So it's 7-5 currently to Richie, but Alex has yet to score in that same turn. And it looks like Alex is likely to get at least a couple of the objectives, maybe even the prime objective. So that's looking good. Finally then, table 6, we've got Dan Bradshaw with his Skaven Tide versus AD Mac, Mixed Chaos. AD is rolling hot. It's highly likely to go Dan's way, but AD is rolling hot, making so many saves. It's just delaying the inevitable at the moment. So with that, I am going to hand back to the boys at the desk, and I'll be back shortly.
Thanks, Adam. That's very, very cool of you. Really happy those games are getting that coverage. It's very tense on those top tables. Can't wait to see how the matchups go into round 5 at some point. Oh, Colonel Cabbage, thank you for subscribing for 16 months in a row. Welcome back. If you just joined us, this is the Bravery One British Open. We are 2019, sorry. Yeah. And we're live watching one of the two armies match up in the top tier bracket. So both these players have won 3 games. It's Skaven Tide versus Disciples of Tzeentch, which is not an army expected to be up here really going into day 2. Nathan What do you think? And so in the first turn, Skaven progressed forward, did some shooting. Then Skaven then Disciples Tzeentch took their first turn. Then they got the priority roll and got the second turn.
Yep.
They did some real big work. The big threat on the board was 9 Stormfiends, who now have been reduced to, I think, 3.
3 with rattling guns.
That's all that's left. So that's probably enough. That's probably enough output reduced that's maybe swung the game.
Yeah.
What do you think, Nath?
Yeah, I mean, I have been impressed by this Tzeentch army in that it's got loads of cool intricacies, and its strength in just summoning more and more models back onto the board is pretty cool. The damage output comes from the magic in the hero phase, and then you just have all the little chipping away from the shooting, which there were loads of shots, maybe 50 to 60, maybe even more shots. They've taken off half a dozen wounds or so.
Wow.
So not very effective shots, but all of that little chipping away helps. And then you can see he's got got charges in. Now the charges are just getting bodies into the right places, and also just keeping the clan rats pegged back into areas where they can't now come into and contest that flashing objective at the top, which is the all-important one in this turn.
Yes, because on shifting objectives, the 3 objective markers that you can see, the one at the top is worth 3 and the other 2 are worth 1. So total you can score in a round is going to be 5 points. That centre still held firmly by the Skaven, but the flanks are starting to crumble. Now that Verminal Warps here can do some output. The general in the centre, but that's not really his job. But he's got spells, he's got some combat, and you'll throw all of it in there because he's not up against anything combatively scary. But personally, I think when the Stormfiends are gone, you might start to see the Warps here attacked, but they are genuinely tough to take out.
Yeah. So the clan rats at the top have just piled in an attack. They've not managed to clear that unit of brimstones that had charged it, so killing only 7 of the 10. So I think that's quite important.
Because whose turn are we? What turn are we? We're in the Skaven's turn.
Yeah, does mean they are trapped, but bearing in mind that clan rats have got a banner which allows them to retreat and charge. We're still in the Tzeentch turn.
Oh, we're still in the Tzeentch turn.
This is Tzeentch combat's phase. So that is, I do think clan rats are possibly some of the best battle line, and the main reason is that they've got that retreat and charge mechanic
built into their war scroll.
It's on the banner on the war scroll. So if you got Gargant, he's one of the main things you shove in your pants.
The main threat.
You don't want those things running around charging back in.
Yeah, it's exactly like we've seen. We saw, especially in AOS 1, we saw the sheer popularity of Skinks as battle line in order because of the retreat and charge mechanic, or just generally the flee away activation mechanic. So you see this a lot used, and I know Mr. Dan Brewer over in Australia has used this a lot pre-Battle Tome. Skaven Tide, and I think you're going to see it used more and more, and it really does pose some more problems. I do like what's happening with the activation phase. It's becoming very complicated. It's also a sub-move phase. However, that means that's more complicated, especially when you take the sub-move phase of combat from Skaven and you apply it to the sub-move phase of the hero phase and summoning that you get from Tzeentch. We've actually got 4 movement phases per turn. And the movement phase.
I definitely agree. The movement phase, the extra movement phases that you get in charging and in piling in are just super important. And if you play a slow army, like the Dispossessed or an Angel's army or something like that, you do learn that making charges which don't seem important, because there might be combats that are pretty much swung one way or the other, are just super important just to move models into areas. They're a great way to claim objectives. And having the flexibility of a retreat and charge, it's just gold. It's
really,
so good.
really good.
So good.
I also got to say that as we've seen quite a few of the new battle tomes, Tzeentch, Skaven, not Firestairs obviously, and Flesh-Eater Courts are heavily reliant on magic. Not reliant, but buffed up and buoyed by magic in a huge way. And I would say that, just like Ixtab has said in the chat, magic-heavy Skaven builds, but I'd also apply that to Flesh-Eater Courts as well, which we've seen a lot. Not Daughters of Cain, but Legions of Nagash are one of those top tiers. There's a lot of magic being cast around at the minute, and being able to take advantage of that for summoning points is a really big deal.
Yeah, so that feeds the Tzeentch army. But the Tzeentch have got the ability, if they don't want those spells to happen, they seem so good at being able to stop it with their mechanics where where you just flick the lower dice to equal the same as the higher dice, all of that.
Yeah.
The Destiny dice.
I wonder what Destiny dice we have left in the pool. I'm sure we'll find out.
I think we've only got 2s and 3s left in the pool now.
Which are fairly
Stormfiends
inconsequential.
Have failed their battle shock.
Whoa!
Fled the field.
That is massive. So there's no command points rocking there for Skaven Tide.
That's it. Yeah, the
wow,
Skavens
that is
used up
huge.
all of their command points.
So just to give you guys some sort of indication, that 780-point unit is gone.
And a lot of the bodies have fled from the bottom as well. Is that all of that unit of clan rats at the bottom as well?
Wow. So what's really, again, getting that second...
Oh, there's just the 2 left in the middle of those pink horrors there, yes.
So Nath, getting that second turn and Michael not being sat there on any command points. So this is something, and you've played against me as I do it. So I usually run 12 Kadai for when I play with my Chaos Dwarfs. I run them around with a flying dwarf, and his only job is to have a command point to make them immune to battle shock, because their multi-wound models are so susceptible. And that 780-point unit has probably lost... It's lost a 300-point part of it just from battle shock alone.
That's it, yeah. It's pretty scary. So that is where the command point thing, the command point inspiring presence, is something that you have to be very careful of, because it's only 1 unit and for 1 battle shock phase. So you are very susceptible to the double turn, or if suddenly 2 units become threatened by a big battle shock roll.
So we might be able to get a priority roll shot here. Oh no, it's not a priority roll.
Yeah, no,
we're not there. We still Skaven Tide still got to have their second turn.
Tzeentch have now got the points back, and we were wondering if they had the ability to clear the units, and they definitely did. Loads, just chipping away at that big unit of clan rats at the bottom, and then the battle shock, and then chipping away at the storm fiends, and another battle shock there.
So I wonder what Michael spent his command point on in the first turn.
They would have used it to save the storm fiends
on round 1.
On the first battle shock, where they took.
They only lost 1. They lost 1 in the first round.
In their turn.
If you're interested in going,
so that's where he just had the confirmation from the table that he did use it the first turn. I think he had lost a couple of storm fiends.
No, he only lost the 1. Oh, he might have lost 2. All right, even had he lost 2, I would say, that's a really tough.
Bravery 6 or 4 or 5 actually, I think.
That's a tough call, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's a tough call. You guys out there, ask yourself, just before a priority roll on your 9-rat storm fiend unit, you lose 2. You got a command point. Do you spend it now and then maybe save 2, or do you save the point for losing the priority and keep it? That's why the priority is such a good mechanic inside Age of Sigmar, because actually you give choices and you're making decisions. So while it seems like a poor decision to have lost it in the first turn, had he won priority going into turn 2, he wouldn't have cared about that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So there's been an hour and a half of the game has gone by. That includes deployment.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's still an hour left of the game. There's still plenty of time to crack on.
Yeah, we've got 57 minutes. Yeah.
But if you look when it comes to resolution of the game, there is nothing really left. So you've got the Vermin Lord Warps here, and you've got some clan rats. There's also a bombardier somewhere as well.
Right.
But you really don't. Michael has lost all of his tools. Not all of his tools. A prodigious proportion of his tools in that first 2 turns.
Right.
So it was very important to make sure that those turns happened accurately. I'm not on the side of people playing fast or playing slow, but I would prefer people playing it accurately.
Yes.
And that's definitely what we're seeing on the tabletop.
Yeah, they seem to be playing a tight game. So here we see shackles being cast by the Skaven army. So that closing the rat trap, but I don't think the Tzeentch player is that concerned because the vortex just seems to be feeding him more and more blue points and brim points. So
It's
he can
so-
summon more horrors onto the table.
Honestly, Nathan, it's a bit of a head fuck trying to work out exactly what you would do against it. I mean, I want the ranged threat probably to deal with the Lord of Change is what I want.
Yeah.
But if you saw how deep he deployed, I think probably initially it looked like on paper that this was really this deployment was very advantageous to the Skaven Tide because obviously they can rack everything in the middle and it's going to be quite short range, they can deal with stuff. However, if they'd have been lengthways, the other way, width, they'd have been wide, then I don't think it would have been as much space for the Lord of Change to hide.
Yeah.
However,
Especially with the Norhols, you would have put them in on the flanks, would have forced them into the center, and then you would have been able to hopefully get at them with the vortex and get those guns in there.
and the reason, and AOS coach Big Love in the chat is saying it's always a risk running big units, and he prefers MSU. The advantage with running that big unit of 9 Storm Fiends is the ability to use the more warp power from the Bombardier. So that unit becomes just terrifying in its output. So really, really interesting, actually.
Yeah, it is interesting. The thing with the MSU is when you come up against something like the vortex really hurts MSU. So it's just, it's just applies different mechanics that you've got to deal with in the game. So MSU is great because you've got so much more flexibility in where you can take models, put little threats here, there, and everywhere. But then it does mean that you are threatened by things like the vortex. Does mean that your buffs don't stack up so much because you're not putting them on more guns, etc. So, but I personally do love playing an MSU style army as well. So.
You love Emmett. See, this is a
every
different
army.
thing. Yeah, me and Nathan play very different army styles. Like I usually play big boxing castles. Oh, there we go. The camera just taking the kicking it deserves. Interestingly, we normally use like an overhead camera, but this week we actually have had a volunteer, Donald Taylor. Some people may know, the Grot terrorist, because he decided not to play Grots. We actually gaffer taped him to the rigging, and he's holding the camera for us. His arms get a little bit tired after a while, but he's just doing a really solid job for us there. And I really appreciate him. So big love to him. It's nice of him, right?
Yeah, he's.
That's a while. He's just dangling up there.
He's a great dangler.
He is a solid dangler. That's a fact.
So the Skaven hero phase, pretty quick. Failed to cast his first spell from the Warp Seer. Managed to get off the shackles, which he's thrown into the rat trap. I don't think that's a major problem for the Tzeentch guys, though. And then into his movement phase, moving up, trying to claim that top objective. Try and stay ahead on points on the board, because he is. If he can get that top objective, maintain control of the center objective, I think he still will be points up come the end of this turn. Again, then it'll go to priority roll. Priority roll will be important again there, because he can just double down on his
Scoring.
Points. So the blue scribes had wandered too close to the vortex and have been pulled into the great horned rat's lair, sucked off into a vortex.
Wow, so how many more wins did they take?
Enough to kill them.
That's always enough. That's always enough.
The table boss reckons it was approximately 5 billion.
So they're down. So that's
that's a bit of an error, I would say, on the Tzeentch. You do want to keep those heroes around, so you got those locusts of summoning.
So the Vermalor Warpster at the top might actually be able to. There's enough output there to help him go and clear that. The unit of. The unit of clan rats in the centre, they need to die in order for Daniil to actually take that objective. Like, I'm rooting for. It's tough for Michael. You've got to be a nice fella because I'm rooting for you a little bit. So that really does. You're playing Skaven and I'm rooting for you. There was a thing. He could go up there, try and clear those two units out. But the problem is the blues behind are going to explode. But also losing the character for Tzeentch means it's really going to change up where he's going to be able to.
Yeah, exactly. So he can only summon now. The heroes that the Tzeentch have got left are the dude on the Gaunt Summoner on the Balewind, and obviously the Great and Clean One. Obviously he can summon, like you were saying yesterday, he could summon some heralds.
Yes. Yeah, you could summon some heralds. Depends. So can we get a recap from the table boss on exactly how many summoning points, blue points and pin points we've got rocking at the minute? Because there might be loads available.
The brimstones at the top. So brimstones have been cleared off by the Warpseer shot, that once per game shot that he's got. He peed on them, I've just been told. That was a long piddle from all the way over there, putting out the fires of the brimstones. So, which means now that those clan rats can charge in and help with reclaiming that.
So he uses parentile tail.
Yeah.
The shooting attack.
To put out the flames.
To put out the flames. There you go. There's a rat doing the work. So they're gone.
And a big charge from that unit.
What did he roll? Must have been big. Must have been big to get over.
A 10-inch charge.
Wow. Okay, that's
great.
Okay. So let's make sure we get that happening here. What else has happened there?
So that was a mighty good charge. So that does free up that unit in the center to possibly charge somewhere else if needs be, because he should have enough models in there to claim that objective back and make sure he's getting the points. Then it's going to be interesting to see which way this Warpseer is going to go. Is it going to go forwards, sideways? So he's got options. He doesn't want to go too close towards his own vortex though, because that hurts rats as much as it hurts anybody else that wanders too close to the triangle of doom. That is the rat track.
Into the centre. I think there's loads that could be taken out there.
So he's gonna come up here and just.
I think he's just going to put the extra damage in there to make sure he clears out as much of that top as possible.
Well, if he can clear the brimstones out the way with the clan rats, then the Warpseer can go in there and start beating on the blues behind, piling in. So, but he's given himself the option. Go either way.
I think it's important to make sure he clears. He needs to start whittling it down now. And then maybe that's a good job that the Stormfiends did, because while in reality Stormfiends were the output in the list, the actual objective scoring that you've seen there is those bodies. So like we said again earlier on, probably not getting off the Gaunt Summoner spell twice could actually be the thing that changed the shape of the game.
Definitely. I mean, if you had halved one of those units at the top there, that would have been a totally different kettle of fish for the Skaven army. Definitely, they would be in a lot weaker position. But there's just no way that Skaven can get at that Gaunt Summoner at the moment, especially now all of their long-range guns have been taken out.
He's now safe on a Balewind, and also all of the other characters are there. All of the units that he wants to do spells at, even though they were in range before, are definitely in range at this stage.
That's right.
So they're in a really tough spot, they can. Well, I don't know. He's I think, though, like I've said before, I think the priority role going into this, and they're always important, but because it's a scoring mechanic in this, so he's going to pull back his points. He started out early, got up on the points very early on, 4 points, Michael did.
Yeah.
So when he's run back now, if he manages to get that one at the top again, he gets the centre, so that's another 4, so that's 8. If he gets priority, he's definitely just getting another 4.
Yeah.
Daniil's really good. Well, no, not definitely, because it could shift to the bottom. And if he shifts to the bottom, that's massive.
Yes.
Yeah, anywhere but the top and the middle is going to not be massive. Top or middle is going to really benefit Michael. Bottom, he's going to struggle, I think, to go and start to deal with that.
Yeah, the clan rats are quick, but I don't know if they'll be quick enough to get down there and start contesting that bottom objective. He has moved up the bombardier into the center, but I don't think that bombardier is enough of a threat to be able to clear the units of horrors that are there, because we've got a unit of blues and we've got a unit of pinks down at the bottom. So, yeah. Got a couple of spells wandering around in the center as well. That burning head and the pendulum. So clan rats piled in at the top and killed 5 of the brimstones. Yeah, and that top objective has definitely gone back to the Skaven. And as you say, it's just very important as to where the shifting objective shifts to next, and who has the priority to take advantage of that. I do think the priority is maybe more important to Skaven at this point, would you say?
No, I think yes. No, because I think there isn't much that Tzeentch is going to be able to do in. Do you not think? I think there isn't Tzeentch much. If Tzeentch gets a turn, there isn't much they're going to be able to. I don't know. Maybe.
What Tzeentch can do. I've been impressed by the output that Tzeentch have got. Clearing the big unit of Stormfiends, which some of them were the really chunky dudes with 7 wounds as well. They managed to do it over 2 turns, and at the same time clearing off a unit of clan rats from the bottom, which was another 20 wounds. Bearing in mind that he hasn't been able to cast that big horde clearing spell either, which you can't see that not happening at some point very soon. And when that kicks off, that's just going to knock a big hole.
It is going to knock a big hole, especially if the Vermin Lord. I mean, what's nice is he's ended up. So the Vermin Lord warps here has got close enough now, so that Inspiring Presence.
We've just missed initiative roll. They're powering through the turns here as fast as they can, and they've both rolled a 1.
Which means it goes to Tzeentch.
So Tzeentch keep the turn.
Are they going to take the turn? That's the big question.
Well, they got the
They won the priority. They won the priority. Are they going to take the turn?
So I assume Tzeentch have taken this turn, John. Looks like the table boss's headphones are not working. So that yes, because we see the pendulum and the burning head being moved around.
Yeah, so at the end of the spells on the table, there's pendulum and the burning head. So moving them and doing the damage in the right place is going to be really impactful. D3 mortal wounds, especially. How many? The question I need answering is how many command points are left on the
in the Skaven pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Tzeentch don't care about command points so much as the Skaven dudes. So Skaven have got 1 command point still in his bag.
So you hadn't have to use any of the last turn.
Yeah.
So if the Gaunt Summoner spell does go off, you will be able to use that on that centre unit. There you go. The Lord of Change, I think, is going to come in and go after the Warps here, I guess.
Using his Change Host ability on that unit.
Wow. So
which have been sat on the side there the whole game. So it does mean the Lord of Change is now within threat range of the Warpseer and the unit of Clan Rats at the top.
It also means that that he's redistributed the locus.
Yeah.
And I assume that not only did they do the priority, they also rolled for the objective, right? The objective has changed shape. The objective will have moved.
Yeah. Headphones have disconnected. So so it'd be interesting to see if they did roll for where the objective moved to and where it's gone.
Okay.
Yeah. Shall I? Yeah, go see.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll find out exactly where that's going now. Yeah, exactly where. Anything. We'll find out exactly where that is somewhere on the tabletop, because we're just getting a communication error right now, which we're going to deal with. But right now we're going to go to Mr. Adam Chucklebutty, and we'll find out exactly what's happening in the rest of the hall as he does interviews and he talks to loads of people about all of Warhammer. We're going to go, oh, sorry about that. We seem to have a technical issue. We're going to go over to Adam now at the, find out all the information from the hall. We're not.
No, it doesn't look like it. So the news from the table, I've just gone and double checked on where the shifting objective moved to, and at the moment it's not moved at all. So it's stayed up in the top. So that's probably best case scenario for the Skaven player. But here we see Tzeentch.
Okay, right, we finally got there. Sorry, we've got some technical difficulties. We've got some communication problems going on at the moment, but we are here. So I'm just going to give you a very quick rundown on what's going on now. We've got a lot of the games basically finished up. So, and there's a few of the people I've been bringing you info on that have run away from their tables, and I will find out that info on who won what game. So table 1, this is Ben versus Mark. Daughters of Cain, Ben Saville. We've seen him up on the table already, versus Joe yesterday. Ben, he's been so unlucky with all of his dice rolls. There's been spells he's been failing every single time, even with re-rolls. There's priority rolls going Mark's way every single time. Points-wise, he's not that far off. In fact, they're very close. He's just walked past me now, so I could believe that game is now finished. But what you've got is, Ben's lost all his priorities. He had pretty much no models left. And there was Archaon and a Bloodthirster right in the middle, still up. Didn't look like they had taken many wounds, so it looked like it was very much done with that. Table 2, Flesh Eater Courts versus Jack with his Daughters of Cain. That's gone Jack's way. Jack has taken that win. Tony was sat there and he said, I just come for the narrative, which, if anybody knows Tony Moore, that is the biggest crock you've ever heard, because he came to win, and unfortunately it's not gone his way. But he kind of claims it on Flesh Eater Courts. Narratively, they're all a bunch of noble knights, right? And they just can't hit women. So the Daughters of Cain just weren't getting hit, weren't getting taken down. It was so knife edge though, the whole game, and there were no massive swingy moments, but it was knife edge each time, and it just slightly went Jack's way each time, and it just nudged him further and further away. So moving on to table 6, Dan Bradshaw versus AD Mack. Dan looks like he's pulling back up points wise on that. AD has got pretty much no models left on the board. So whilst Dan is behind a point, by a point, he's about to score everything, and he's probably going to rump away and score everything for the rest of the game. So that's almost definitely going to be Dan's. So looking at it, there's some potential for a really hot mix-up. Going to hand back to the boys now, and you're going to get a catch-up on the tabletop.
Hey, thanks very much, Adam. I'm very excited to see some interviews with the people that potentially have won those games in a small moment. Back to the table, Nathan. It's game over.
It's game over. They're shaking hands, yeah?
They are shaking hands.
Cool.
They have done. So what happened is the Lord of Change teleported to the top of the table here, and then he just nuked the Vermin Lord Warp Sphere.
Yeah.
And with that in effect, Michael called it and said, no, that is just going to be the game.
Yeah, because all that's left, some few clan rats. We didn't get to see the Gauntlet Summoner even attempt that spell then. I'm sure that would have been pushed through that time. That would have been a big hole in the other blocks of rats, and it would have just been a case of going through the motions. So yes, the Tzeentch has proven that it has got the output needed to clear clan rats and storm fiends off of the table. And thereby take control of objectives. So yeah, Tzeentch showing that they've got the capacity to just bring so many models onto the board, and at the same time outload a load of high quality damage, because it's all mortal woundage that's going across.
Yeah, I think you're right, Nathan. Absolutely. I think Luvo in the chat makes a really solid point in that maybe he was on a points differential in the volume he had to move on through the game. I mean, there's still 37 minutes left on the clock, so there's plenty of time left to potentially achieve what he needed to achieve. Yeah. But what he didn't do was push forward, because I think he felt like he didn't have the output. And to be fair, it was only a couple of spells that came out of Tzeentch to do that. He also didn't. Clan Rats are not particularly brave, so I think going on from turn 3, they would have flooded off the board.
Well, so that was like the first 2 spells of the Tzeentch.
Yeah, there was a lot more to come.
There was still a lot more spells to come. So he's lost the ability to keep those clan rats on the board, because he's lost that hero from that point. Then he would have burned through the clan rats very quickly that turn, would have then controlled all of the points on the board, so that would have given him the 3 for that point, the other 2, so 5 points, putting it at 10-8, and there's no Skaven would have no way to score points back. So that is the difference of that 5th Chaos God. The other Chaos Gods, old Papa Nurgle, Khorne, the sexy lady that is Slaanesh, or man that is Slaanesh, and good old Tzeentch himself. So many ways of being able to summon stuff, whereas the Great Horned Rat hasn't got that summoning ability. Well, it's got the one-off thing. If he's rolling the thing on the bell, he can bring an extra Vermin Lord on, which is pretty cool. But hey,
yeah, it is. But
I do think summoning is super strong, and that's where we see it on the death side. Flesh Eater Courts, where they bring on those units at the beginning of the game. All of this, yeah, summoning is still a super strong. I know in my army now, the Gloomspites having access to summoning on the 4-up, bringing half a unit back through the shrine. When that happens, the game just feels so much easier. It's like, it becomes a totally different game. And more often than not, when that actually happens, it does bring us, it just feels like I'm playing a different game. And it's cool. It's cool for me, not less cool for my opponent. Just makes the game
I mean, it's never
easier.
cool playing against Skaven, is it, realistically? Nathan, it's been great doing this game with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
We get to find out what happens, obviously, in the final game. Some of the games are still wrapping up here. We were going to bring some interviews, but apparently it's not really our plan. So, listen, you guys have been wonderful. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. I think you can watch anything, stuff like this all the time on this wargaming.com. Nathan, you've been great. Table Boss John, John Scrivens, Adam, you guys have all been awesome. Thank you very much. We'll see you soon.
Cheers.
It's too late, mate.